Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday. No, it's not. It's Tuesday, February 20th, 8:47 a.m. This is what happens when you miss a day of this. Your entire week flips upside down. And we are back once again for the market open. I've had an epiphany. I've had a realization. And I think I already knew what I'm about to say. It's not like it's that big of a revelation, but it definitely hit me yesterday, which is I need this market open in my life. I know a lot of you say it's a part of your life. I got a bunch of messages today that are like, oh man, the market's not open. I really missed the stream. I need the stream. Okay. If the stream's not happening, I don't know what's going on in my life. I mean, think about this. We've done this since September 2022 pretty consistently. I mean, we've missed 3 to 4 episodes since then, and those were for extenuating circumstances. I had to go to the hospital once, I had to go to California once, but we have made it every single day. And since September 2023, we've done the extended version starting at 8:45 to 10 a.m. Now we basically go till 10:30, 11. I need this in my life. I'm a junkie for this stream. I appreciate you all being here. It means the absolute world to me. And having a market to analyze not only is exciting, but having a market to analyze with an entire audience and really go through all the news as it's happening is just it's the most special thing in the world. Broccoli says you sound like a crackhead, dude. Like I was jittering yesterday. I woke up and I was just like, oh, Bitcoin's up, Ethereum's up. At least something's happening in the market. Like I needed something. So I'm happy we have something. By the way, Bitcoin just hit 53,000, which is absolutely incredible. So we've got a lot to talk about, folks. Palantir institutional buys, Bitcoin and crypto is doing well. Google should not have gone below 140 because I sold at 149 and Google's making me feel like I know how to time the market. It's not good for my mentality long-term, but Google is falling. We got to talk about that. We got to talk about the Discovery acquisition, Discover Financial by Capital One, $35 billion. We got Walmart earnings, Home Depot earnings. We've just got so much to talk about. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart for being here. I missed everybody. I missed this entire stream, but we are here. We are back, and it's time to get into it. Top Dasher, Low Walt, I Show Sad, Justin, Sasky Rose, Benny, Wick John, Ty Gordon, Felicia, Gerald, all the way from Arizona. Thank you for being here. Richard, Clean Spark up 5%. Yeah, we got to talk about that. Adam, Jittery Hobo, Miami Ren, Broccoli Bob, John, Inbound, Quick Pump, Christopher George, Job, Ken Bailey, Lord Gorham, Mikael, Aaron, Colorblind Collector, David, Noodler, Tim Till, Unkit. All right. Let's get into the market open. Brandon, TJ, what's up? All right, here we go. So I think we have to start off with a couple things. First thing we'll do real quickly is Bitcoin. Obviously, we'll talk about it again, but I want to address it really quick before we get into everything, and then we'll keep going from there. And we'll also discuss the Palantir stuff. So Bitcoin literally started mooning in the past 3 minutes. It was 8:40ish when I got the notification that I tweeted about. With Bitcoin starting to hit new levels, 53,000. It's falling off just a little bit, but let me show you what I'm looking at right here with Bitcoin. It just hit a 52-week high of 52,997, and then it hit 53, and that's when I tweeted about it, right? At $53,006.70 was the high. Now it's at 52,741. Now this literally happened. You see this big green candle, this big green candle right here? This is what happened in the past 10 minutes. So I was expecting Bitcoin to be at 52.1, which it was at 51.8 yesterday. It fell to 50,000 on Saturday at 10 a.m. and that dip immediately got eaten up, and then it went to 51, and now it's at 52.8. I didn't expect that to happen this morning, but it did happen. And as a result of that, we have Clean Spark that immediately surged, as you can see right here, 4.3% in the pre-markets, 1864. That was not happening. It was not at this level literally 10 minutes ago. Robinhood was struggling to maintain 14, guys. It was at 1394. It was at 1381 at 4 a.m., 3 a.m. Now it's at 1415. That is exclusively because Bitcoin hit 53,000. I've got a lot of Robinhood due diligence to talk about as well over the weekend. If you followed on Twitter, there was a bunch of stuff that happened in Robinhood. So I'll be discussing that later on the show. We got Ethereum trying to hit 3,000. It touched 3,000 for 2 seconds, then it came back down. But Ethereum touching 3,000, that was a big deal. And then you got Coinbase, which was at 174 in the pre-markets. It was kind of down decently from its earnings pump. Now it's at 181.35. So we are seeing momentum continue to happen in the world of Bitcoin, and it really happened in the past 10 minutes. Rob Minner, thank you for being here. Bay Ray, thank you for being here. John, thank you for being here as well. Mark, who's got coffee for me. I think Bitcoin is the only coffee you need this morning. Derek Wall says supply shock about to happen. I think so. I think what we're seeing here is the inflow, and I'm not saying anything new, but the inflow from ETFs is starting to get to a level that is quite significant. One would argue that even though they're not buying 7 Bitcoin a day, it's quite magnificent because they're buying a lot more than 7 Bitcoin a day. And as a result of that, we are seeing a bit of a supply shock that's happening in the world of Bitcoin. Again, you don't have to believe in Bitcoin to understand the basic argument, which is that if there is a limited amount of supply of something and there's more demand and more inflows into the ETFs means that those ETFs have to allocate their capital to buy more Bitcoin, then obviously there is going to be some more buy-side pressure here. Here's the weekly asset flows into crypto. Particularly on the ETFs. This is at a record of 2.45 billion just last week. BlackRock alone, the IBIT ETF, now controls about $6.7 billion worth of Bitcoin. They are buying, if I'm not wrong, close to 59,000 Bitcoin a day, all 12 ETFs combined, which means if that's the case, I mean, you're going to get some buy-side momentum. And here's the thing, okay? Everyone says that they don't get FOMO. Everyone. Even I, 10 months ago when I was arguing with my co-host on Finance Junkies about Bitcoin, and I was like, well, I was like making the sort of philosophical argument for why Bitcoin is not that valuable. There was no FOMO because Bitcoin was at what? 20,000, 22,000. I was like, it's whatever, right? It fell from 70,000. So you're like, oh, that's not that big a deal. Everyone gets FOMO. It does not matter who you are. Everyone gets FOMO. Now, you probably shouldn't feed into that FOMO. And I kind of tried to prepare myself before that FOMO by buying some CleanSpark, having a heavy position in Robinhood, which so far the thesis has been correlated with Bitcoin on top of the actual company's thesis. And that's kind of been my big play. I kind of tried to prepare myself for, all right, if Bitcoin does go to the moon and I don't have a ton of Bitcoin, can I still allocate capital in other places via options and increase my leverage even when Bitcoin does well? And so I think I'm kind of prepared for the FOMO, but even I don't know, dude, when FOMO happens, when this thing's running 5-10% every other week, it's going to get annoying, dude. People are going to want to get in. And it's one of those things you have to be mentally prepared for, because when this goes from 52,848 to 60,000 or 70,000, 80,000, I don't know if that's going to happen, but if it does happen, there's going to be some people sitting back and watching, and there's going to be other people that are going to be wanting to buy off those people that are going to ask for more when it comes to selling. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that FOMO ends up playing out. Either, you're prepared for it, or either you're just waiting for it to happen. And then we're going to have a cycle. That cycle will result in a crash eventually, just like it always happens with Bitcoin. But let's say that cycle gets up to 150,000 and the crash goes down to 100,000, or goes to 80,000, the crash goes down to, 65,000 for the next couple of years. Like post-halving, there will be a cycle, there will be a peak, there will be a crash. No one knows what those targets look like, but most people are saying it's going to be better than it was in 2021. And it's going to be pretty interesting to see how that ends up playing out. So that's what's going on in the world of Bitcoin crypto. We'll have a lot more to talk about. Robinhood up 1.2% in the pre-markets. I'll talk about Robinhood in a second. I want to do the Palantir segment real quick, and then we'll get into some other stuff. The most of the market is red, though. I mean, if you're looking at it, most of the market is red. Meta's red. Tesla's red. We got to talk about Tesla. Microsoft might be falling below $400 today. Zoom is red. DoorDash is red. Apple's red. Google's definitely red. Verizon is red. The only stocks that are up that I'm looking at are Robinhood, Bitcoin, which is not a stock, Coinbase, Bitfarms, Marathon, CleanSpark, Riot, MicroStrategy, right? These are the stocks that are up right now. Even Palantir is red as well. Now, we'll talk about the Walmart acquisition after we do the Palantir segment, but that also is green because they had an acquisition and they had some pretty good earnings. All right, Palantir, $23.97. Let's talk about Palantir. So I did a video yesterday that you guys might have seen, which is that institutional ownership in Palantir is going through the roof, quite frankly. And the reason I say through the roof is because it's up about 2 percentage points from where it is from like 3 weeks ago. So 3 weeks ago it was about 38.9. Now it's closing in on 41.5. And it's pretty exciting, dude. It's pretty exciting. Now, I know, we're not out of the blue until we get 60% institutional. That would be the most exciting for Palantir. At least 50% would be nice. And why is that important? It creates more stability in the stock. It means that if they have a bad quarter, the toots are not just going to sell it off like crazy because they have a long-term horizon. But the fact that it was up almost 3% from a couple weeks ago, that is why we have the 45% gains that we're seeing in Palantir, because smart money bought in after, Palantir showed that growth is going to be phenomenal. And as a result of that, it looks like they're holding it. So institutional ownership right now about 41.49%. This is close to about 858 million shares, as you can see right there. And over the weekend, I tweeted about this. So if you're following on Twitter, you saw me post a bunch of these tweets, which is just a lot of institutions buying the stock, right? There was a lot more people engaging in it. You got Square Point buying 1.3 million shares, State Street 2.2 million, Wally trading 548,000. If you just go to my Twitter and scroll down, you'll see a bunch of these. But the point is, a lot of institutional investors were buying. And I think the reason that they were buying is because they realized that there is something happening in Palantir, particularly on the growth side and on the bootcamp side. And that's leading us to get more excited about what's happening on Palantir. Now, volume has dried up. Volume is around 50 to 60 million every day. And 2 weeks ago, we were at 400 million, 200 million. So volume obviously is not the same as it was before. But that's not the worst thing in the world, because maybe those speculators are leaving and maybe the institutional investors are kind of just holding their positions and, letting it kind of ride out into the next quarter. We also got bootcamp expansion right here. So Lord Haregroom tweeted this yesterday. Palantir will be hosting a London insurance bootcamp in March 22nd, and then a Zurich insurance AIP bootcamp, which is in Switzerland. I've never been to Switzerland. My mom went to Switzerland last summer, but Switzerland on April 4th. So the Swiss and the Brits are going to get a taste of AIP boot camps. Karp already says the demand for these boot camps is like, trying to get access to a rock star ticket. It's filling up dramatically. The reason this is really good is because, again, if we are going to get international commercial to start growing at even 20% of the level that U.S. commercial is growing, what I believe that does for the long term is that means if international and U.S. are growing, that means commercial itself is growing. Right now, that's at 33%. Imagine that gets to 40, 45% year over year. Government can stay at this crappy 11, 12%, even start deaccelerating a little bit, and we can still CAGR at above 20% top line growth. Which means if government even goes up a couple of percentage points and international commercial and U.S. commercial are doing well, we're going to get to 25, 26, 27% CAGRing per year. I mean, dare I say we're going to get to 30%. Now, it depends on how successful we can be internationally. Karp has said that a lot of, Europeans aren't really that ready to embrace the technology like the United States has. But the goal of these AIP boot camps is to get them to get ready by not, taking their CEOs out to dinner, but actually showing them what they can do. And so if there is an appetite for AIP in London, in Switzerland, in all these different parts of Europe, we're going to see a lot more international commercial expansion. And that's going to be very, very, very exciting in the world of Palantir. And so that's what we're seeing right now for Palantir over the weekend. That was the main news. Institutional ownership is up. Boot camps are expanding. Karp also had some interview. I reacted to that yesterday. And in that interview, he was just simply talking about the fact that, look, we need to actually embrace the values that we're talking about. He went to Germany. Germany still doesn't like Palantir. So he's like pleading his case in Germany, in Munich at the security conference, to just be like, look, guys, Denmark, we have a great business. This is the first time he publicly talked about Denmark. And he says Denmark is thriving because they actually have rules and regulations, and they choose the software to procure based on those rules and regulations. Germany says they want rules. They say they want regulations. France says they want to have all this stuff that allows them to procure software in a meaningful way, but then you don't follow through. And if you did, we would win. So please actually follow your rules and regulations. So he was being clever at that conference and just trying to make his point. And hopefully some of those officials will actually listen to him over the next couple of years. Okay, so that was Palantir. We talked to crypto a bit. We'll talk more about it in a second. Let's talk about the Walmart acquisition. That was some big news today on Walmart. So let me pull this up right here. Walmart ended up acquiring a company. And I didn't expect them to acquire this company. They had earnings today. They're going to do a 3-for-1 stock split, so their earnings went well. Here is the headline, the stock itself, Walmart right now. By the way, I will be buying $335 of Palantir this morning as soon as the market opens, because that is the Twitter money we got over the past 2 weeks. And so now I said every dollar I get from Twitter is just going straight into Palantir. We're going to make sure Elon makes us rich off Palantir one day. So I'll be buying that at the market open. Walmart is at 177. It's up 4.43%. I'm going to get the headline numbers, but this is what we have for the acquisition. They're buying TV maker Vizio for $2.3 billion and a move to grow its ad business. Now, it's really ironic we're seeing this news this morning. Okay, it's really ironic. Bay Ray says Roku's down 6%. You guys are going to think I'm making this up. I'm not making this up, okay? I had a dream that I was at a Broadway show. Okay, I am not making this up. I had a dream that I was at a Broadway show. All of this is going to make sense in a second. Who was there with me? Kathy Wood and her chief futurist, the self-proclaimed chief futurist of Arc Innovation, Brett Winton. Okay. And so we're there. And so Walmart's buying a TV maker in order to grow its ad business. Roku's down 6% on this news. Roku's down now 29%, 28.8% over the past couple of weeks, or over the past week, because they had crappy earnings. And I look Brett Winton and Cathie Wood in the face. Okay, these are the two main guys of ARK. And I printed out, this is the crazy dream. I printed out Roku's earnings report and I showed them the numbers. And I just yell out while the opera's happening, right? It's dead silent in this opera, this Broadway show, whatever. And I'm like, where's the moat? And I just yell it out, right? And then Brett, the chief futurist, he's like, oh, well, the advertise, like he's literally trying to convince me the advertising. And I was like, Brett, do you even watch Roku? And he says, no. And then I'm just like, so why are you investing in it? It was the craziest dream ever, dude. And it was so specific, but it was because I just couldn't believe that ARK has $700 million in Roku. So it's kind of ironic based on that dream to wake up and see that Walmart's actually trying to grow their ad business, which is obviously not good for Roku. Walmart has a ton of distribution, and Vizio is probably not at the level of Roku's distribution, but if Walmart can make Vizio at the level of Roku's distribution, which probably won't happen, but even 1 or 2 percentage points, that might not be the best for Roku writ large. Now, here's what the Walmart CEO said, which was really good in regards to deflation on retail. Here they said, let me share this here. In Walmart US, we're there in general merchandise, but the slope of the decline softened during Q4, meaning the prices are lower than a year ago, but not as much as the trend line would have suggested at the end of Q3. So they're saying, hey, look, year over year, prices are down. We are getting able to reduce prices. The problem is it's not going down quarter over quarter, which is why consumers are seeing a little bit more of a problem when it comes to them being able to purchase certain goods and services. This is why consumers still feel. Even my dad, we were in the car yesterday, he was talking about, he was like, where's the inflation rate? I was like, oh, it's coming down. He's like, it doesn't feel like it's coming down. Like, it still feels like it's expensive. So the Walmart CEO is saying, yeah, there is deflation, but it's not at the level that people are suspecting. Now, the reason Walmart's up 4% is because deflation is actually not the best for Walmart. They get to continue raising their prices as long as inflation is high, and sometimes raise it a little bit higher than what inflation, truly is. And the dirty secret is that they don't cut their prices, because if the consumer is willing to pay for it, then they're willing to pay for it. And then you get this cycle in which Walmart is able to make more money off of a consumer when, quite frankly, they shouldn't be charging as much. EPS $1.80 versus $1.65. That's a big beat on EPS. Sales $173 billion versus $170. They beat revenue by $3 billion. They raised their quarterly dividend by 9% as well. 5% revenue growth year over year. E-commerce is up 23%, and advertising is up 33%. So even though inflation gave Walmart the ability to raise some of their prices and kind of keep them elevated with the consumer not noticing, but we'll see how far that can go. You raise the quarterly dividend, you get your e-commerce sales up 20% year over year, advertising grows up 33% year over year on the backs of not having to cut too many prices because inflation is still being a little sticky. You have a pretty good quarter and you're up 5%, and you have a 3-for-1 stock split that's going to incentivize people to come and potentially buy the stock. So overall, really, really good quarter for Walmart. I mean, what more could you have asked for Walmart? This is the type of quarter they needed to have, and they ended up having a pretty smash quarter. But yeah, that dream was real. That dream was very real. It was such a weird dream, and I could not believe I woke up and I confronted Cathie Wood on her on her Roku investment. And there you go. You got Walmart trying to take away some market share from Roku in the context of buying a TV company. Inbound says, I've definitely underestimated how many ads you can run on Walmart.com. Yeah, I mean, if we just look real quick, and then we'll talk about Robinhood, Walmart's website traffic, if I'm not wrong, it's close to 568 million. We're going to check right now. Walmart gets 471 million visits a month. 471 million visits a month. Now, Amazon is at 1.5 billion, so Amazon's a little bit different. But still, I mean, that's a lot of people coming to your... I've never bought anything off e-commerce on Walmart. I buy on Amazon. I don't know who buys stuff off Walmart, but this is a very big world. There's a lot of people in the world. There are, dedicated people that use Walmart as their staple brand. And so you'll have people that check out their e-commerce division, and then boom, there you go. Okay, so we talked about Walmart. We'll talk about Home Depot in a bit. We talked about crypto. We talked about Palantir. Let's do a segment on Robinhood. I mean, it's doing well. It's doing well. The thesis is working out, and what we wanted to happen is starting to happen. Now, the reason it's breaking out this morning again is because of crypto, is because of Bitcoin. It was actually negative in the pre-markets, and then again, literally 30 minutes ago, Bitcoin broke out into that 50 53,000 range, and then Robinhood broke out with it. 14.11 in the pre-markets. If we can hold 14 over the next week, even if we don't go above 14, I'll be very, very happy because that means we will hopefully be creating new support on something that was resistance. 1350 was massive resistance. That ended up getting cracked. Now we're at 14. I think we're not out of the woodshed in terms of getting through 14. And it needs a couple days. But if we can get there, maybe it's a Palantir situation, dude, where Palantir, got through 21, 22, and now it's hovering at 23, 24, 25. Even if it comes down back to 22, like still it's in that range, which is just secure. Robinhood needs that. I mean, honestly, Robinhood needs to get to 15, 16, and then fall back at 14 and sort of establish itself there. That would be the best thing that I think could happen this week. Or we just break out and see where we can go. What is happening with Robinhood right now? I think what's happening is that crypto's keeping momentum alive, not only on Coinbase, but on Robinhood, given these transaction fees and given the crypto revenue that analysts are projecting. I looked at their institutional ownership over the weekend. I used Whale Wisdom, which is a pretty good website to kind of compile and aggregate a lot of this data. And the toots are buying. They're buying a lot. I mean, it seems like the toots have a sweet toot for Robinhood. That was good. That was really good. That was on the spot. That's why you come to the market open. That was on the spot. So as you can see, I mean, you got Balancy Asset Management buying 1.1 million, Amfrise Financial buying 751,000. You got all these different companies buying a lot more. Eluve Asset Management 200,000. All of these buys that were disclosed on February 14th happened in Q4. But there's a 45-day delay, so maybe they sold out some of their shares. That's very possible. But at this point, they're about 75% institutional ownership, a little bit more than that. Which means, I mean, if you're buying 1 million shares, 37,000 shares, 70,000 shares, 751,000 shares, 627,000 shares, you're not trying to flip it if it goes from, they probably bought it at what, $10-ish, $10.90-ish to, 13, 14. You're not buying that many shares just for that small flip. I mean, maybe some of these guys are, but I think the far majority of them expect and understand what the thesis is for Robinhood, which is that if crypto goes up, Robinhood will go up, and gold memberships, deposits, all that stuff we've been talking about, and they ended up buying the stock. So smart money kind of knew what was happening, and as a result of that, I think we got a lot of people that were excited for Robinhood. And as a result of that, these are the comments I'm seeing, and these are actually really, really good comments that I'm seeing. So these are, I got a bunch of these over the weekend because I was tweeting about Robinhood, and someone said, nah, Vlad is still a scumbag. How much of that cash did he get from turning off the buy button? This is when I said a tweet in which Robinhood has 12 billion in market cap, 6 billion in cash. And so this random dude is like, well, he's a scumbag. How much of that cash did he get from turning off the buy button? It seems like a clever joke. It's not clever to not make money. And the toots are making money. People who bought in early are making money. And you can say he's a scumbag, but at the end of the day, I want to make money. And so this is the same type of sentiment we saw around Palantir, right? Back when it was $6, $7, $8, $9 of just like, oh, it's the blah, 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 blah. All this nonsense people were saying, it's a spy company. They're going to steal your data. Like Peter Thiel is weird. Karp's hair. It's like, dude, I want to make money. I don't. So either you can say Karp is weird and Vlad is weird, or you can look at the financials and realize that this is undervalued. And I think that's what's happening with Robinhood. I think a lot of people are realizing that. And as a result of that, there can be potentially a little bit more of a breakout. Rick says, discuss Titan chances. Titan is likely going to be announced March 2024. There was an article that came out about it from Defense Scoop in December. It was supposed to get announced or end of December. It got pushed to March 2024. That's a $1.5 billion contract over 5 years that Palantir has partnered with Anduril to work with. Our competitors for that contract are Raytheon and C3 AI. I really don't think we're losing that contract. If like the worst case scenario, I think we're going to split it with Raytheon and C3 AI. That would probably be something that could happen if the government just doesn't want to give it all to Palantir. But more likely than not, I believe we're winning that contract. And we haven't, I don't think we factored that in, right? We got S&P inclusion. So I also think that's why the institutional investors are coming in. Then we've got this Titan contract. Then on Q1 earnings, Ether Square, a good friend of ours, and you probably know him if you're in the Palantir community, he shared something that was really interesting. So he tracks Palantir links, like .palantir, .foundry links. And look at what he showed over the weekend. Here we go. In terms of new Foundry AIP entities, Q1 of 2024 is already bigger than Q1 of last year. Bear in mind, we're in the middle of the quarter. We still have February and March to go. So now this is not the most accurate in the world, right? A lot of these entities could be fake. They couldn't be real. Maybe they're just test pilots. But the point is, when you type in xyzcompany.palantirfoundry.com, you get into a multi-pass login. I think ARK, we showed this over the past couple of weeks, is also using Palantir Foundry to manage their investment fund. And most of these links end up being real. Like we saw a Tesla link at one point that was working. It doesn't work anymore. Maybe that was a pilot that was being tried out, but most of these links work. And so if Ether is finding a lot more of these, the point I was trying to make is that if Palantir sandbag in Q1 and we end up bringing a lot more customers, we had 103 deals in Q4. That was one deal a day because a quarter is 90 days. More than one deal a day we're getting into Palantir. I mean, that's just really exciting. And if that continues to happen with Titan, with S&P inclusion, all of this would happen until March, along with Nvda, which we'll talk about them, and ending up not doing too bad. You're gonna get a pretty exciting quarter. And that might be a quarter that might be a blow off the top quarter, just if all those catalysts come together. Obviously, Palantir's top line growth needs to happen as well. But if you have more growth, more customers, more revenue from those customers, we beat past those $616 million they're expecting in revenue. You get Titan and you get S&P 500, which I think all should be decided by March. This is going to be a very, very fun quarter. And we just have to see if that ends up playing out. Sachin, hello. Thank you for being here in the chat. Daniel says, wasn't C3 AI a fake AI stock? So everyone in the Palantir community kind of understands C3 AI as being, I don't want to say a fraud, but a company that has gone through multiple revisions, and their ticker symbol is now AI, which is why they've kind of, chosen to be the AI playboy. And that's not really what's happening. C3 AI right now, it's been stuck in this $28 range. It's down about 1.5% of the pre-market. $3.4 billion market cap. The people that have bought it have pretty much bought it because of the ticker symbol. It's doing close to $500 million in revenue a year. They're not profitable. They're still valued at $3.3 billion. One could argue that's incredibly overvalued. It's a ticker that I would not touch, primarily because we know, who's the real player in AI. And if you have to pay a little premium of that for Palantir, then I would pay that premium versus touching C3 AI. Also, Thomas Siebel, he's a legend in the technology world, but if you hear him talk about AI and C3, you don't get the type of confidence I think you would get from listening to someone like Harp, especially given some of the takes he has around what's going on in the tech sector. So yeah, the fact that C3 AI is working with Raytheon, I think the government was like, okay, so we need to give the contract to another tech software play. Remember, Anduril's hardware, Palantir software, even though 60% of Anduril is software, which is why I think it's going to be such a good combination. And then Raytheon's hardware, C3 is software. So the government was like, all right, so you guys have hardware and software. You both bid for the contract. And June 2022 is when they got the prototype for this. They got a $35 million prototype to even go build this stuff. So this is a very big deal that the Army wants to be able to give out this contract. May the best win. I think Palantir is going to end up being the best, and they will probably win. Sachin says Siebel lies profoundly. Yeah, that is one of the conventional things people say about Thomas Siebel in the industry. Lang, thank you for being a member for the channel. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being a member for 1 month on the channel. Stop Console War says, what are your thoughts on the NBA partnership with SoFi? I never heard your thoughts on the big news since we're on the subject of ads and contracts. So I talked about it when the news came out. We actually had Tanner come on the channel for about 5 minutes and discussed it. I saw the NBA All-Star Weekend, a little bit of it. It was really bad. NBA All-Star Weekend is not good. I think people are starting to realize that the players have no incentive. If you watched even a little bit of the game, you would be incredibly bored because it's just not a good game. People just don't care. The dunk contest, the three-point shooting contest, it's just not that good. So they do attract eyeballs, but it wasn't the most exciting All-Star Weekend. In terms of SoFi is where? SoFi is 831 right now. Look, I think SoFi is going to break out this year. I don't know when. The problem is I don't think that the NBA collaboration with SoFi is the catalyst for it to break out. Now, that may be a catalyst for them to get more member growth, but I think two things. I think number one, how much did the deal cost? I don't think we have clarity on that yet, right? How much are you actually paying for this deal? Because if you're paying an absurd amount of money like you paid for the SoFi Stadium deal, and the brand awareness is not enough to match the membership signups, then you're going to be overpaying in terms of your cost per acquisition. I'm assuming they factored all this stuff in before guiding for GAAP profitability. So I don't think it's the biggest concern, but it's something that should be a concern to think about if you're a SoFi shareholder. And number two, how many people are actually going to sign up because they see SoFi in the NBA? I think a lot of people will, but I don't know a lot of people will. So it's one of those things that's kind of up in the air. You kind of hope it happens, but you really got to wait till next quarter to see the results. I think it needs a catalyst to break out, and the catalyst cannot be guiding for the type of profitability they're guiding for the next couple of years, almost showing no growth in profits or no growth in EPS for the rest of 2024. They're probably sandbagging that. But you can't blame an analyst for being bearish on SoFi or just saying, oh, well, why should we raise our price target if they're not guiding for their GAAP profitability or their EPS to get higher all throughout 2024. So until they beat those results, which I think they will do over the next couple of quarters, then I think SoFi it's just in a tough situation because there's no catalyst. Like with Robinhood, you've got crypto, you've got deposits, you've got gold memberships, you've got all this stuff happening. With Coinbase, obviously, it's very obvious. With CleanSpark, it's obviously very obvious in terms of what's happening. With Palantir, you've got S&P inclusion, Titan, etc. With SoFi, you just got a waiting game. I don't know what the catalysts are. And so that, in the context of SoFi, it's kind of just a buy and hold and wait till it ends up taking off. In terms of SoFi, we should transition to this bank thing that's going on. We got to discuss that. So We have a bank acquisition of Capital One buying Discover for $35.3 billion. Let's watch a little bit of this, and then we'll pull up their stocks and kind of discuss what this means for SoFi and the banking industry.
Financial buying Discover Financial Services in an all-stock deal. It's one of the largest in the world of Wall Street in a very long time. Joining us right now is David George, Baird Senior Research Analyst. Good morning to you. This is a deal that people have talked about as a possibility, sort of a fever dream for a long time. It is now here. I'm curious, upon looking at just the headline and the deal itself, you think this is going to work? It's not going to work? What's your thought?
Good morning, and thanks for having me, Andrew. From our perspective, we're pretty positively disposed towards this deal and like it quite a lot. Consumer finance and credit cards specifically, Andrew, is what we would call a commodity business. So scale is increasingly important, and consumer finance through the cycle is actually a great risk-adjusted return business. So in addition to significant cost savings, there is an opportunity for Capital One to benefit from utilizing Discover's back-end network. So that if you assume 60 billion in purchase volume, which is how much consumers use on Capital One cards, and they're able to bring that on to the Discover platform, there is about we estimate between $1 billion and $1.5 billion of incremental cost savings that Capital One will be able to benefit. So from our standpoint, this is a large deal. But the integration risk compared to, and we've been doing this a long time, compared to bank deals is a lot less, because in a transactional product like credit card, you don't have to worry about retaining bankers. The relationship piece is not nearly as meaningful. So despite this as it being a $35 billion deal, a very large one, the largest in many years, the integration risk here we think is a lot less relative to some of the larger bank deals we've seen in our career.
Now, I'm going to let them finish, but $35 billion is a lot of money. Discover right now, their ticker symbol is Discover DFS. They're up 11% right now at 123. They're basically at the premium that they're going to be bought out at. And for Discover Financial Services to come under Capital One, we were just under a little bit of a regional banking crisis, or at least that's what people were scared about. I think this is kind of bullish because it shows some consolidation in the banking sector, so it's not spread out as much. And it also shows there is momentum and mobility happening in the banking ecosystem that doesn't need a ton of banks to fail in order for, the overall economic environment to start being better. So we'll get more updates for why they're buying this, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. And if we see some smaller banks start to get eaten up by some of the bigger banks as well, we'll see a lot more healthier consolidation in the regional banking sector.
We're looking, obviously, Discover's now up about $14. You're looking at Capital One down a bit. It's all stock, so there's an arbitrage situation going on here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the price is a full one. Cap One is probably the only buyer that could pay this price, but from our perspective, it is full but fair. If you think about kind of the longer term potential at this price, Andrew, the earnings accretion going out to 2027, which is really a fully phased in kind of combined company with cost savings and synergies, is roughly 14 to 15% accretive to earnings. So that's pretty meaningful economic accretion for Capital One shareholders. Clearly, this is a large deal. There's some regulatory issues, I'm sure, that you're going to want to talk about. But from our standpoint, over the intermediate to longer term, this is a pretty good deal.
Okay, so let's hit the regulatory issues. You just mentioned them, and you could pick your person.
Now, here's the question, as June says in the chat, will the government allow this to actually happen?
If you are the Treasury Department, what do you think this morning? If you are Lina Khan, what do you think this morning? If you're the Department of Justice, what do you think this morning? If you're the Federal Reserve, what do you think this morning?
Well, I'm just an analyst, Andrew. I am none of those people. But so from our perspective, we don't cover Discover, but they have been dealing with some regulatory issues. So this solves a potential regulatory headache. So we think that's positive. Cap One is based in the DC area. So clearly we're of the view that they had to have had at least some preliminary discussions with bank regulators, as well as Justice Department officials on this deal. But clearly that's going to be an open question, and none of us really know. But there has been a lot of consolidation in card in order to offer consumers the best products at the lowest prices. In a transactional business like this, we would advocate approval of a deal like this, and we think that it makes sense.
It's going to be really interesting to see if the government approves this deal. Lina Khan is trying to, chase Amazon down to the ground, and they haven't really been successful with that. Capital One is an exciting company. I have a couple of friends who work there. And I mean, they have 52,000 employees, market cap at 52 billion. At the end of the day, they are a bank. They try to be more of a digital bank and embrace some of the modernization happening in banking. They're down 5%, obviously, because they're giving up $35 billion. And you got Discover Financial Services that is up 11% or 12% because they're getting an acquisition, a meaningful acquisition above their market cap. Their market cap right now, 27 billion. They're going to open up closer to that $35 billion range. So 12-15% premium, not too bad for Discover Financial Services. Again, I thought KRE and XLF, the banking ETFs, would actually be up on this news, and they're down. So it seems like the broader financial sector is saying that this acquisition is not really what we wanted to see right now, at least so far. They're not the most excited about this. We'll see if it even gets approved. In the context of SoFi, I mean, to me, I don't know if this has a major impact on SoFi other than the fact that it's a bank that's being bought out. SoFi one day might be a bank that ends up getting bought out. And if SoFi can keep growing at these levels, maybe a bigger bank wants to undertake SoFi and take their tech platform. And maybe that's worth many, many more multiples than what it's worth right now. Maybe instead of $8, that's worth $20 one day. We'll see if that happens. But I think that acquisition is healthy because that's at least showing that the banking sector is alive and it's well, and there's not this horrible contagion that some people think is going on with regionals. I don't think that's happening right now. And we'll just see if that ends up going through. Alex says Noto will not sell SoFi for anything under $30 billion. I agree. Remember, Noto has PSUs at the tune of about $500 million if SoFi can stay at $26 exactly for 60 days by 2026. So he's got to 4x this guy or 3x this guy and keep them there until 2026. He is heavily incentivized, and now he just needs to keep, working to see if they end up getting there. Same thing with Palantir. I mean, people were saying Microsoft might buy them out. I don't think Karp wants to sell, dude. I mean, at the end of the day, 50 billion people are saying is overvalued in a variety of different metrics, and you can say that's the case. But long term, I don't think 50 billion is going to be anything for Palantir. I mean, that's just going to be one step of their journey in terms of what they're doing. We had a little bit of a controversy on Twitter yesterday. So this person tweeted this thing right here. Why is Palantir turning into a cult? I don't get it. $53 billion market cap, 60 times price to free cash flow for 2025. What's the moat? Gotham and Foundry will revolutionize how we invade countries. What is it? AI, ML, big data, big words. Is it the teal effect? Is it Karp's hair? I see accounts literally spending hours daily talking about this company. They could have just tagged me. Here's some advice. Go listen to Bruce Berkowitz's latest podcast and learn something actually meaningful about investing. Okay. So I get that this person wanted to have a little bit of start a little bit of momentum on Twitter. But here's my response. I mean, it's very simple. My hot take, and I think it's not that hot of a take, is that cult stocks deliver outsized returns, especially when the largest companies and government agencies, like the entire UK healthcare system in the world, are using that cult stocks software. So you can say that the valuations get stretched, but the reason Palantir is up 50% year to date is because institutions, which we talked about for the first 10 minutes of the show today, finally realized the potential of this company. Retail did not move the market cap $25 billion. That just didn't happen. So the question is, if institutions bought in heavily post Q4 earnings, smart money, what are they seeing that's so special? Thankfully, most of retail saw what they were seeing now at $6. The reason I think Palantir is a cult stock that is different than GameStop or AMC is because of what retail saw at $6. $6, 4 times lower than the price right now. What we saw 2 years ago at $6 is what institutional investors are seeing now. We were just a little early. The institutional investors did not see what the retail crew of AMC or GameStop ever saw. In fact, they shorted the crap out of that, and they had a nice little game they played back and forth in 2021. But there is no moat to AMC or GameStop, which is why institutional investors don't care about those companies. And if you're in a cult for those companies, you're in a cult for something that's purely based on hopium and just like ideology. Whereas with Palantir, there's so much to dissect. There's so much to discuss. There's so much going on. There's so much news. There's so many contracts. There's so many intricacies. There's so many keynotes and things to analyze in terms of what's happening. There's so many geopolitical issues. There's just so much going on that I think this cult stock, powered by a community, may be a bit overvalued because there's some retail momentum, but retail momentum not moving the market cap up $25 billion. That is a company that's going to return phenomenally, I believe, over the next 10 years, or at least has a chance to return phenomenally. Amazon at one point was a cult. Tesla was at one point a cult. Google, now Google's a $2 trillion company. Back when Google was a $40-50 billion company in 2005, 2006, there was definitely a cult around it. Maybe not like a Twitter, YouTube cult, because that wasn't the case yet, but there were people that were obsessed with Google. 9to5mac.com, Apple, are you kidding me? That is the cultiest of cults. Apple's just hard to move as a stock now because it's worth $3 trillion, but At one point, it was worth less than 10 billion. So cult stocks, I think, are important, and they move a stock on fundamentals based on how the cult is analyzing it, as long as institutional investors get in, which is why it was really important for those institutional investors to get into Palantir. And now we just have to see, how big can this momentum get and how strong can the cult continue to be. But I think it's important. I think it's important for that to happen. And I think that's actually a good thing, not a bad thing at all for Palantir. Okay. Oh, well, revolutionize how we invade countries. Yeah, that was also, again, he was taking some jabs at it. But I mean, at the end of the day, dude, I think this is a guy who missed the run. I think this is a guy who did not get into Palantir before it 4x'd in the past, year and a half. And he's a little upset. And it's okay. I understand. I get it. But just know that there was a cult that was there, that was watching this all happen, that was documenting it pretty easy, on Twitter and YouTube. It was not that hard to find out that this was happening. And you either missed it or you didn't. But the good thing is it's not too late to get back in, and it's not too late to, because I think this story is just evolving. I mean, I think we all know this story when it comes to Palantir is just starting. I mean, it hasn't even begun. All right, so we've got the market open in 2 minutes. We've got Nvda today, not today, tomorrow. That's going to be a big live stream. Make sure you're here. It'll be after hours, 3:45. That is going to be one of the biggest days ever. We'll talk about it more in a second for why that's happening. We didn't even check SMCI today. Let's look at SMCI. SMCI is at 790. It is below $800 in the pre-markets. So we'll keep an eye on SMCI, but it was actually like 830 in the pre-markets, and now it's down at 790. So obviously it dropped after being up a decent amount. But we'll get an update on Nvda after the market open. We'll talk about what's going on, and we'll ultimately see, where the momentum lies for a company like Nvda and the impact that's going to have on the broader equity markets. I think if Nvda crashes, then obviously Palantir is going to be in a tough situation. I think and not even because it's supposed to be justified for them to be in a tough position, but just because of the nature of AI and everything that's happening. If Nvda really does well, which I actually think they're going to do well, and again, we're going to talk about Nvda after the market open. I think there's a lot of reasons why Nvda is going to do well. Then we are going to have a pretty exciting week, folks. I mean, it's going to be a pretty exciting week because the entire AI sector is going to get a little bit of a boost. Now, the argument is Nvidia's up 50% year to date. How does it keep doing well? After the market open, we'll talk about some of the arguments for why Nvidia probably still has enough momentum baked in where they could end up doing well. So we will see. We will see how this ends up turning out. All right, I've got my bell ready. I've missed you guys so much. We are here. Everything's normal. We're back to what should be happening, which is a market open stream. That's how the world goes round. And ladies and gentlemen, it is now Tuesday, February 20th, 9:30 a.m. Thank you so much for being here today. Things are back to being normal in the world. The stock market is now open. Wake your ass up. Oh my goodness. Super Micro is down 2.5%, 784. The stock is now down about 23% since Friday. It was 1,077 on Friday in the pre-markets. 4 days later, it is now 786, down 2.1%. On the market close, if you guys were not there on Friday, we discussed someone on Wall Street Bets lost $70,000. They bought $1,000 call options that were expiring on Friday. Why did they do that? Because I guess they wanted to think that Super Micro could go beyond $1,000 on Friday. Literally, they bought like these 0-day expiring options, and they put 77% of their portfolio. They had a 90,000 portfolio. They put 70 grand of it in. They lost all 70 grand. It was a really heartbreaking post to see, and they showed the screenshots of their numbers. Super Micro now down at 790. We'll see if the dip gets bought, but it is declining right now. 793 down about 1.28% on the day. SoFi 831, that's down about 0.66%. Discover Financial opens up at a $30 billion market cap. So there you go, 122 up 11% on the day. There's still probably some regulatory hurdles they have to get through, and maybe they're not getting the full premium of the acquisition price because they're afraid of that regulatory hurdle stopping, kind of like what we saw with Activision, Blizzard, and Microsoft. But as of now, it is up 11% on the day. $30 billion market cap, $35 billion acquisition. Roku's down about 6%. Oh my gosh, Robinhood breakout, 1422. Wow. Did not expect that on Robinhood. Did not expect them to pretty much break out. Robinhood 1422. So there you go. Robinhood is up, and we are seeing some momentum there now. 1412. So a lot of people were taking some profits right now. 1409, but there was some buy side pressure as soon as the market opened. Coinbase I would imagine 180. So Coinbase is down a little bit. The reason Coinbase didn't have a major breakout is because they had their earnings pump last week. But on top of that, and I'll say this again, I mean, this is something very, very important about Coinbase. Since November. So, and Robinhood is still a $12 billion market cap. Coinbase is a $43 billion market cap. It's not to say Coinbase can't do well. It hit a high 193, but dude, the stock is up 6x. I mean, there are going to be people that are sitting on massive gains that want to take profits. Whereas on Robinhood, people are just getting in at 12, 13 bucks. You know, people were not in there at $8, $9 in December when a lot of the institutional buying was happening, and you know when some of retail was getting in. So if they're just getting in, they expect this thing to actually deliver a return. And if it's not delivering a return yet, then you know you're not going to see that happen right now when it comes to SoFi. Oh, can you guys hear the audio? You're good? You're good? It went away for like a second, right? It went away for a second. Let me make sure it's good on my end. Okay, yeah, it's good. It's good. Okay. It should be good. Let me make sure it's good right now. The only thing I said about Coinbase is that it's up 6x in the past year. So as a result of that, you know, Robinhood is a little bit cheaper, just in not only a market cap basis, but people that are just getting in expect a bigger return. And so, you know, there's more buy side momentum. Whereas in Coinbase, there are people that are sitting on a lot of profits. Palantir at $23.92, down 2.1% on the day. CleanSpark, $18.05. They're up on the day. Ethereum, $2,971. Bitcoin. Okay, so Bitcoin takes a little bit of a beating. There was a lot of sell side pressure at that 52.8 range. So Bitcoin right now at 52,325. That one's down. Google opens up on the day. It was at 139. The pre-market's now at 142. Lunar. Okay, so this stock was up like 100% last week. Apparently, they're doing something with satellites in space. I didn't get a ton of time to research about them, but they're up 26% on the day. Let me know if anyone is in this stock, if anyone's in this at all. It was up a lot. I mean, just let me look at the year to date real quick on this one. Then we'll talk about Nvda. Lunar's up 26% today. Year to date, it's up 252%. So it basically went up 180% last week in 2 days, on Thursday and Friday. They're doing something around space and satellites, to my understanding, and the market cap's $937 million. This has all the classics of a retail meme stock ahead of it. I wouldn't chase this because this looks very scary. I got to do some more research on it, but it is something that has some momentum, and maybe it's not just retail meme frenzy. Maybe there is something more that's happening in regards to space and some of the contracts they're working on, but that one is up. Rocket Lab is not up like Lunar because I think Lunar got a hold of some other stuff. Rocket Lab is up 3% on the day, which is nice, but Lunar, you know, up 250% for the year in the past week. Something else is going on there. Maybe Wall Street Bets got a hold of it, or maybe they actually did get some contracts that are really important. So we'll dive deeper into them in a second, but that is what's happening on Lunar, and that one's up. Nvda down 1.91% on the day. Okay, so we're seeing some downside to Nvidia, 711. Maybe it's preparing to get a little bit of downside before it makes its next leg up to earnings when earnings are good. But we got Nvidia going down. June says, I bought some Lunar. They land on the moon on Thursday. Okay, so apparently Lunar is landing on the moon, and that's why people are excited, like June. We'll try to get a clip on them in a second and get some more. SoundHound is up another 5%. These guys were up 60% last week. So again, the reason why these guys are up, Jensen Huang invested in them, about 2 million shares. Nvidia touched them. The company itself is not that exciting, quite frankly. I looked at these guys over the weekend. It's like AI voice applications and sales and, you know, consumer electronics. It's cool, but I think the reason they're up is because Nvidia thinks they have some potential, and that's why the market got excited for them, not because, you know, they're that interesting. Greg says they're supposed to land a module on the moon. That's why it's mooning. Okay, I'll look up a little bit about it, and we'll see if we can get some coverage on that and see what's happening there. But yeah, that stock is up, and it's up a lot because of the moon news about Lunar. Let's buy Palantir real quick. I said I was going to buy some Palantir, so let's do that right now on the public account. So here is the public account. I was going to buy $335 of Palantir. That's the Twitter money. So this is the count you guys can see. We have 3,000 in here. We have 20 shares, 23.80. Okay, here we go. Buy shares. Well, no, we'll just do dollars because 335. All right, so this is what we got from Twitter. You guys can see this, right? 23.74. We're buying the dip. I don't know if this is going to be the dip. We'll see if it's the dip. This is every single week. We'll just buy or sell, or buy or average up or average down based on where it is. So that's going to be 14 shares. You know, this thing public says tip $5 to support fair and transparent markets. The tipping culture in the United States has gone insane. Okay, we're not tipping $5 to do the order. We're just not doing that. Now, last time I did this, I tipped $7 by accident because I didn't even know I was crushing the button. So if anyone works at Public, I want my $7 back because I don't want to give you guys $7 to support fair and transparent markets. No, I don't care. Like, you're not getting that $7 out of me. So we're not going to click this time. Submit order. Let's see where it fills. 2384. Okay, 2384. There we go. 14 shares, 2384. There we go in Palantir. The public account now has how many shares? Our cost base is 2441, and we have 53 shares. And we still have a decent amount of cash to buy in the public account. I think we have like $2,300 to buy, and we'll be doing that periodically. All right, so we bought the dip on Palantir, 2375. We'll see if that continues to happen. But dude, that was insane. I was like, I went through. I paid $7 last Friday, and I was like, did I just pay $7 to execute? I'm not from maple syrup country, okay? They do that in Canada. In America, we have freedoms. Wow, look at this. Coinbase is down 3%. Robinhood is up almost 1%. Wow, that is incredible. I didn't expect that to happen. We're seeing some divergence between Coinbase and Robinhood. Here are the options on Robinhood. Let me show you guys that right now. I thought we would see a little bit more to the downside with Robinhood if Coinbase is coming down, but I think the valuation on Coinbase is getting up there, whereas Robinhood, it's not. So here are the Robinhood options. We are up 93% on the main position. We're up $26,000. Now it's up 87%. We're going to let this play out, folks. We took out a decent amount of money already. We took out about 30% of our initial. I'm going to let this ride. My conviction on Robinhood has been getting stronger and stronger. We have till 2026. So really, we're just going to let this play out and see what ends up happening. Again, if Robinhood can get, let's just be conservative. Robinhood gets to $20 by the summer, this position, by around July, this position should be up about 60 grand. And if we just kind of hold it out, let's say Robinhood gets to maybe 30, and I don't think that's going to happen. I know a lot of people think they could gap up to 30. I don't think that. I think Bitcoin really has to explode for that to happen. If it gets to 30 by August, September, this is going to be a $100,000 position, and then we will take our profits. Like if we're up 100 grand, yeah, we're gonna pull out of this. Now that means Robinhood has to break out, which means crypto has to break out in order for that to happen. Could that happen? Yes, that could happen because the crypto revenue for Robinhood is gonna go up. But the question is, how likely is that to happen? So we're going to leave that position. We took out some initial already at a 60% gain and just see how that plays out and see, where that goes from there. Nvidia's down 3%. Okay. Here's my girlfriend. Sorry. The girl who I think one day could be my girlfriend. No, I'm just kidding. Gunjan. She's on CNBC. Let's hear her take on what's going on with Nvidia. And then we'll look into their numbers. Here we go.
Reddit. It wasn't just about meme stock trading, but there were legitimately trends pointing towards younger folks getting more avid into investing.
That's right. Multiple brokerage executives said that they've seen a surge in these custodial accounts over the past few years. You're seeing 13-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 17-year-olds jumping into the U.S. stock market. Other times they're asking their parents to open Robinhood accounts and, pass over the login information so they can trade or invest in stocks. And this is part of a broader trend of Americans being more invested in the U.S. stock market. And now it's extending to this youngest generation.
What's been driving that? But what exactly was the primary reason or reasons for why younger people are getting more interested in the stock market?
So many of them learn about investing from their parents. Others are seeing social media influencers, which of course can carry its own risks, right? In terms of
I'm thinking meme stocks and everything else. Yes.
Yeah, but what we saw was the pandemic really did draw a lot of investors in. And even though a lot of investors aren't trading meme stocks of that era, they've still stayed invested. And it has been this huge force that's drawn a lot of investors in. The S&P 500 is up more than 50% since the start of 2020, and that's helped bring a lot of investors into the market. Recent data showed that Americans have never held more stocks than they do right now.
What are the most popular investments for some of these younger folks out there? I mean, I think to myself, is it stuff they use? Is it Meta platforms? Is it Apple because they just say, hey, I use this stuff, I'm going to buy the stock?
It is. Brokerage executives told me that the stocks and companies that are ubiquitous in these teenagers' lives, like Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, those are some of the most popular. Vanguard told me that index funds are the most popular in their custodial accounts.
Now, let's talk about the word of the day. What is it for you?
For me, it's AI. AI is the word of the day because...
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. So the title of that clip, I didn't watch that clip. The title of that clip was Nvidia's in Uncharted Territories. And all they're talking about is retail people buying stocks, which is fine, but they didn't title it correctly. I actually thought we were going to get Gunjan's thoughts on Nvidia, but that wasn't the case. She was just talking about retail. Nvidia's down 6%. So we're going to leave Gunjan, no matter how pretty she is. And she is very pretty, but we have to look at something that's a little bit bloody, which is Nvidia down 6% right now. This is pretty bad. This is pretty bad. We are seeing a bit of decline. Now, I'm very curious, where's Palantir in this? Look at that. Look at that. 2363. Dude, I know a lot of people said Palantir is not associated with Nvidia. And I know the whole market's taking a little bit of a dump right now, even though there's some pockets of green. But I think there's an Nvidia effect there, dude. Nvidia down 5%, AI taking a little bit of a beating. You're going to get some of these stocks decline. Where's the SaaS names? Let's take a look at all those. Yeah, SaaS is red. Look at that. Look at the right side of my screen, or left side of my screen. Red across the board. Oh my God. Oh my God. Adobe's down 2%. Salesforce down 1%. Okay, so I mean, maybe there's a little bit of Nvidia impact on Palantir, or maybe it's just the market taking a dump. I think it's a mix of two of those. Right now, I'm leaning more towards the entire market's taking a dump because everything is down. If there was at least one SaaS name that was up, I would say, okay, maybe it's maybe a SaaS name that's not that big in AI, like Twilio. They're not that big in AI, but they're down as well. So the entire market's taking a dump. SMCI. Oh my God, it is down 9%. Oh my God, 9% on SMCI. Wow. And June said they stole your word of the day. Yeah, I wouldn't pick a word of the day like AI. I would pick like gully washer. You guys remember that one? You guys remember gully washer? A heavy rainstorm that is short. Let's see if this red day is a gully washer. If it's a heavy rainstorm, Nvidia down 5%, but it's a short-lived one. Palantir's at what, 2366? This is the first time we've seen 23 in a week for Palantir. Volume is big. There's no volume. There's 9 million shares. That's nothing for Palantir. We should be at 20 million by now. Volume is absolutely dried up. 2369 right now, down 3% on the day. Walmart is up 5.6%. Right? Verizon's up a little bit, but everything else is pretty much down. Google's down, Adobe's down, DNA's down. QQQ 426, there you go, is at 439. So short QQQ should be up today. SQQQ is 13, basically $12. Yep, that's up. Robinhood taking a beating, 1386. So that $14 range was very short-lived for Robinhood. It was there for a little bit, and then it got hit off. And this seems like algorithms, because if Robinhood broke out while Coinbase went down, it seems like the algorithms are taking Robinhood back down. It seems like there's a lot of algorithms messing with this market right now, and they're bringing everything down. ARM's down 10%. Oh my gosh. ARM, yeah, look at that. ARM's down about 8 billion in market cap, 116. Oh boy, this may be a little bit of the apocalypse we were thinking was eventually coming. And quite frankly, it's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, like, we did need a little bit of a pullback, right? Everyone, I mean, did we really expect the S&P to hit 510 that quickly? Probably not. All right, I'm going to guess S&P's at 497. S&P 496. Okay. So S&P is taking a little bit of a breather here. And we're seeing the entire market take a little bit of a dump. Nvidia down 4%, SMCI now down 7.7%. Dividend stocks are pretty much green. Yeah. Dividend stocks are pretty much green. I wonder who's going to buy this Nvidia dip. Now, let me get into some numbers on Nvidia. You guys might have seen me talk about this on the market close, but if you haven't seen me discuss this, I want to bring this up real quick because this is very, very important to discuss when it comes to Nvidia. Okay, so look at this. This is by Loop Capital. All right, Loop Capital put out a report on Friday, and this report is why the market is so bullish on Nvidia and why some people maybe aren't bullish enough. So if you look at this report right here, Loop Capital is expecting Nvidia to bring in $175 billion of top-line revenue, fueled by data center revenue. Data center revenue would be about $159 billion out of the 175, so almost 70% of the revenue would be data center. By 2026, the street consensus is $109 million. Loop says 175. That's a 60% delta. On data center, the street thinks $91 billion by 2026. Loop says 159. That's a 74% delta. So what that means, and look at the EPS. The street thinks they're going to do $24 a share. Loop says they're going to do $40 a share by 2026. If Nvidia comes out with numbers that signals that Loop Capital's estimations are further to the upside, further to the sort of correct hypotheticals of what could happen versus the street consensus, Nvidia is going up because these numbers mean that Nvidia is cheap as hell right now. Now the problem is, are these numbers going to be right? And I didn't go through their entire methodology for how they get there, but their core point is that data center revenue is going to kick in. Robotics is going to kick in. There's going to be every single company in every single sector, drugs, pharmaceuticals, that's going to be using generative AI, which means chip demand is going to be through the roof. And if that's going to happen, then Nvidia is cheap because the numbers are going to back up the valuations. But is that going to happen? And I think that's what everyone is concerned about right now. So if you think that's going to happen, maybe you buy the dip down 4%. Some of these institutional investors maybe finally get the entry that they've been waiting for. But I mean, look, the stock's up 50% year to date. Is this really a dip down 5%? Is this really a dip? Is this just the beginning for more pain, or is this something that is temporary as it makes its way back to 700? We're gonna see. We're gonna see by the end of the day how the market's thinking about it. SMCI down 7%, Rocket Lab 4.925. Whereas CleanSpark 1726, Palantir 2375. So Palantir was at 2364, got eaten up a little bit on that dip, 2377. The order flow, we have 40 million that came in, 48 million that left. On Nvidia, you had 2.5 billion that came in, 2.6 billion that left within the first 17 minutes of the market. SMCI, 946 million came in, 873 million left, but obviously SMCI was down a lot last week, so it's still down 7% on the day, and you have some higher sell side orders that are bringing in the momentum to the downside. Derek Wall says, yes, buy this dip. Okay, so Derek's bullish. Oh, what's his name? Dan Ives also is bullish. Let me pull up his tweet. Now, he said he's been pretty bullish on Nvidia, but particularly on this earnings, he thinks that Nvidia is not stopping anytime soon. So, and then we'll talk about Tesla right after we look at this. But Dan Ives says, let me pull up this tweet. Dan Ives says, the biggest piece of filling in this AI puzzle with all the street watching is now hearing from the godfather of AI, Jensen and Nvidia, this Wednesday after the bell with their earnings guidance. The AI revolution starts with Nvidia, and in our view, the AI party is just getting started, with a fire popcorn emoji. So if Nvidia has crappy numbers, Dan Ives is going to have to get up on CNBC and justify his popcorn emoji because Nvidia did not get the AI revolution necessarily started. Now, I know we're in the midst of the revolution, but at least the numbers were probably not that good enough if the stock doesn't end up doing too well to continue the revolution, or at least the euphoria around the revolution. Now, one thing that could happen is Nvidia puts up numbers that are good, but they're not phenomenal, and the stock tanks, even though, like, obviously we're still in the 1995 revolution or whatever that Dan Ives says is happening, but the numbers are just not exceptional enough to get the stock above that $750, $800 range. So that's one scenario that could happen. The other scenario is the numbers suck and the stock tanks for a good reason, or the numbers blow it out of the park and the stock goes up. And so I think one of the three, we're going to find out tomorrow what happens, but it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. Derek says Nvidia will crush. Jittery Hobo says Amit bought 14 Palantir, so I put an order for 14. Price is 23 even though. Let's see if it fills. All right, let's see if you get to 23 and that order fills on Palantir. Look, I'll buy more Palantir today if we dip to the low 23s. I'll buy a little bit more, but let's see if we can actually get there. Let's talk Tesla. So we got a price downgrade on the street. This came out yesterday. Let me put this in right here. So Tesla got in downgrade to $175 from Phillips Securities. So let's read what they had to say. The near-term outlook for Tesla looks quite bleak, with the company set on sacrificing margins and growth also slowing. The analyst tells investors in a research note. The firm cites near-term headwinds for the downgrade, but says its longer-term thesis for Tesla leveraging its services and software like margins for full self-driving and supercharging remains unchanged. This is actually not a horrible report, because basically what Phillips Security is saying is like, look, in the long term, we know FSD is going to be amazing. We know supercharging networks are going to be incredible. We know, I mean, I don't know if they talked about the bot, but the bot's probably going to be monumental in terms of Tesla's growth. But in the short term, they gave no guidance on volume. They gave no guidance on margins. They said growth rate for cars would be notably lower, in their words, than it was last year, which means maybe they deliver 2 million cars, but that's not growing at the same rate as which they were doing 1.8 million from 1.4 in 2023. And as a result of that, there's really no reason for the stock to be surging to these levels. Now, why did the stock go to 200? I don't know. I think it was because people thought Musk bought 7% of the company, which wasn't really the case in terms of his voting shares. That's still kind of like not really resolved yet. But Tesla, 193 is down 3% of the day. I didn't think it deserved to go up 200. I mean, not because there's anything wrong with Tesla, but because like that was just kind of random that it happened. And so it wouldn't surprise me if we see 175. And if it does, I will definitely be a buyer at 175. 180, I didn't really pull the trigger. 175 would be exciting. I think it needs to consolidate around the 180s to 190s for a month or two to be super excited to buy. The reason I'm not super jumping the gun to buy right now is because they have another earnings coming up, and that earnings is not going to be good. I mean, let's be very obvious. That earnings is not going to be good. We know that earnings is not going to be good. They didn't give any guidance because they know that guidance is not going to be the best. The Berlin factory was shut down for a month. It just got started again 8 days ago. Cybertruck is not, actually it's not going to be free cash flow positive for the next 17 months. That's what Elon said. So, I mean, what are we really buying Tesla for? Like, what are you buying the dip for on Tesla? In the short term, there is nothing to be excited for when it comes to Tesla. There's absolutely nothing. I know FSD started to come out over the weekend and people got access to the beta, which is awesome. But like, FSD is not fully out there yet, right? Like, it's going to take, I would imagine, at least another year for FSD to even be super, super operational throughout the entire world. So I don't know what's the reason to buy Tesla. I really don't. Blake says you'll miss this dip again. Blake, you were saying that at 270. I love you, Blake, but you were saying that at 270, you were saying that at 280, you were saying that at 250. That we've got all the receipts to prove it. So your word doesn't count as much, in my opinion, when you say you'll miss this dip again, when you've been saying the dip has been happening since 300. The point is, there's not a lot of guidance. There's not a lot of margin guidance. There's not a lot of volume guidance, which means even if they put up some good numbers, Tesla's growing at 9% year over year, guys. I mean, like, it's not the best. Now, granted, the long-term thesis is well intact. I mean, you would have to be a fool to bet against Tesla. But to not imagine you can get a better entry price, in my opinion, I think it's possible. I do think it's possible. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Arthur says, happy my shorts are printing right now. Okay, so Arthur started shorting Palantir at 24.70. Arthur, you were definitely worried on Friday, though. You were definitely worried on Friday that sucker wouldn't go below 25, or wouldn't go above 24.70. So it was staying at those levels. 23.55 right now. So your shorts are printing on Palantir. ARM is down 9.43%. Tesla down 3.1%. Nvda down 5.34%. That's 687. 52-week, or not 52-week low, but the low today on Nvidia, I think, was 681. So we're close to those levels. Rocket Lab's down a little bit. Coinbase down 4%. Whereas Robinhood? Robinhood's still maintaining 13.95. Robinhood's not tanking. So Robinhood being a little bit of a divergence than Coinbase. ARM down 9.4%. Yes, that is correct. Amit, what's the new price target for Palantir? Look, if we can consolidate between 22 and 24 over the next 4 weeks, I'll be very happy. But what I've been warning about is that we're not out of the doghouse here. Palantir has only been in this $20 range, $23 range for the past 2 weeks. That is not enough time to consolidate. It feels like it's consolidating, given it's barely moving from this range, right? 23.50 is the lowest we've seen today. There's a ton of buy-side orders come in as it drops lower. But if we have a broad market sell-off or Nvidia screws up, then yeah, it's not going to be pretty for Palantir. So I think it needs at least another month, or end of March, and hopefully we're still in this 23, 24 range, if not higher than that, to say we are thoroughly out of the 20s for Palantir. But it's going to need some time. I mean, we're not going to have the next earnings until May, so we have a good 4 or 5 months to just chill here and see if we can inch higher. But there's still going to be a lot of more volatility in the context of Palantir. Look, if you guys want to, someone in the chat saying you should DC on Tesla. Yeah, like, sure, DC on Tesla. That's fine. I'm just saying, for my personal portfolio, I would like a better entry price. That's all. And I don't see the logic for why, Tesla doesn't go lower. Now, for Palantir, you could say Palantir is going to go lower. So why are you buying at 23? That's super fair. I just would argue that for Tesla, there's really not a lot of short-term catalysts to get this bad boy up there. If it goes back to 220 or 230, sure, that's great. That's phenomenal. But like, the idea that would happen for some real catalyst is non-existent. The idea that happens for some random meme frenzy, sure, that could happen, but that's not sustainable, which is what we're seeing right now. So I think if you want a better entry price, you could get a better entry price on Tesla. But if you're super long-term on it, 193, 175, 180 doesn't really matter. I would like a better entry on Tesla. I would like a better one. We got Chris in the chat. Here we go. Tesla below 150. EV demand is crashing. So you could either have my perspective that says 175 is a decent price, and that's what I would like, or you could have Chris's perspective and says, EV demand is not going to happen. It's not going to be at the levels that it was happening at over the past couple of years, and we're going to see a crash to 150. Chris says, sorry, folks, just have to accept this fact and chill. Maybe that's the case, man. Maybe. I mean, we'll see. Now, remember, we were talking about Tesla demand, or EV demand writ large, at in right before the earnings in January, and the Ford plant for the electric F-150, they laid off half their workers, and so there was an argument there that like EV demand in general is starting to go down. Obviously, that Hertz news that happened. Now, that Hertz news, I think, was Hertz's fault. It wasn't really necessarily EV demand writ large, but there could be a compounding argument if the numbers are not good enough going into Q2 or Q1 2024, which is going to happen around about May for Tesla, for EV demand. And they've got to show via the numbers that EV demand, even if it's going down in general, for Tesla, it's not going down. And that's going to be, I think, the prerogative on that call. But no one has an issue what's going to happen because there's no margins guidance and no volume guidance. And so it's not the most comfortable just buying Tesla for the hell of it, because you kind of don't know what's going to happen. Not to mention, if the S&P takes a beating, the S&P gets a 7% pullback, which is what Tom Lee's projecting, and a lot of people are just saying, look, we've melted up in February. February historically has been bad for tech stocks. We've done the opposite of that. So maybe we get a little bit of a March correction. If Tesla's not, Palantir's not going to be at 24. Tesla's not going to be at 193, right? I mean, if the S&P goes down another 7%, maybe 10% pullback. So we're going to see what happens. But if that's the case, I think there are going to be some better entry prices on Tesla. But Ford loss per EV was wild. Yeah. And that's why they had to shut down half the factory or lay off half the workers, because they can't afford it, right? So Tesla's obviously the winner in this space. It's just a question of what's going to happen in the short term when it comes to Tesla. Anyone going YOLO on Nvidia? I would be surprised if anyone YOLOs on Nvidia today. 690. Look, it does look like it's a dip, but when you look that the stock was up 50% and now the stock's only up 42%, I don't know if that's necessarily the dip. Here's a poll I did on Twitter over the weekend. This is actually really interesting. I would love to know what you guys say as well. I asked everybody, what do they think will give the best return from start of 2024 to end of 2024? Let me know what you guys think in the chat. Nvidia, Palantir, Bitcoin, or Tesla. We won't do a poll. Just like let me know what you guys think in the chat. I don't even know if we're allowed to have 4 options on the poll in the YouTube chat. But what do you guys think? Put the ticker. Palantir, Tesla, Nvidia, or Bitcoin. What's going to have the best return if you bought on January 1st, sold on December 31st? So far, Palantir's up 43%, Tesla's down 20%, Nvidia's up 47%, and Bitcoin is up 16%. This was as of yesterday, so the numbers are up or down just a little bit. But I got 2,188 votes, and this is what the results were. Chris says Tesla's going to compress margins hard. Yeah, and again, that's the bear case in the short term. And as a result of that, it's just a little scary to be buying at these levels if we know that margin compression is going to happen, and that might be tough. Now, granted, maybe it doesn't happen, and maybe this is a good price, but that's the risk you have to be willing to take if you're getting into Tesla. All right, so everyone in the chat says, oh, wow, I'm seeing a lot more Bitcoin. We got Derek Wall with a lot of exclamation points on Bitcoin. I'm seeing a lot more Bitcoin. Here's what my audience said. So little surprise, 37% said Palantir. Okay. Tesla was 20%. Nvidia was 16. Nvidia was 26. Bitcoin was 26.8. So, and I think this is about 2,200 votes. It's a decent sample size. Palantir is suspected to have the best return by buying on January 1st, so at $16 or whatever, selling on December 31st, which if you did that, that would be up about 40%. Bitcoin was 46,000 to start the year, right now at 51, and we'll see where it continues to go. Or 52. But that was the results of the poll. If I had to guess, quite frankly, I think it might be Bitcoin, guys. I think after that halving event, I think Bitcoin gets closer to 70, 80K. And then I think Bitcoin is the best return of the year. I think even if Palantir gets to $30, Bitcoin's still going to outpace it. Tesla, I think this is a year to DCA. And this is a year to build out your position, quite frankly. Interest rates are not probably going to come down till the summer. And so if interest rates don't come down, it's not going to be easy for Tesla to keep doing well, right? Interest rates really need to come down for Tesla to do well. The problem is inflation is a little sticky. The labor market is incredibly tight. So from a macroeconomic perspective, you can make a bear case against Tesla just because it's not even Tesla's fault, but because of interest rates. By the way, for everyone saying, "Oh, buy Tesla whenever at whatever price you want," Elon on the earnings call said we can't do anything about interest rates. He kind of, waved the flag. He was like, "Look, I don't know what you want me to tell you. Like interest rates are high," and so that might hurt Tesla. And Nvidia, I don't know. Nvidia's already up so much. I don't know if it's still going to perform this well throughout the end of the year. Why no Hood? I picked kind of tech stocks. I mean, Robinhood could do pretty well, but to me, Robinhood will do well if Bitcoin does well. So if you pick Bitcoin, you probably are basically picking Robinhood. But I think Robinhood could do well as well. It just depends on how Bitcoin does. Chris says Celsius. This is another question I asked. Okay, so before I show you the results of this poll, what do you think is going to do better by the end of the year? Celsius or PayPal? Celsius or PayPal? But let's actually do a poll on this one because we do 2 options. Let's do a poll on this one. I think this is an interesting question, okay? And the reason I think it's an interesting question is because is because Celsius is already up 20%. PayPal's down 5%. Okay. I kind of, dare I say, think PayPal might end up pulling it out of their hat and they do better than Celsius. Celsius could still do well, but I kind of feel like once the buybacks really come into effect, so they have 10 billion in buybacks from the last year. They have 5 billion they just authorized. These guys can do $15 billion of buybacks on a $60 billion company. At some level, math has to be math, right? 1 + 1 has to equal 2. At some point, the buybacks have to get so ridiculous that the tangible book value of the stock generally should aim higher just because there's less dilution. And then the street should recognize, wait, the company's not a dead company. And we should see some price momentum. That's what I think can happen. Now, I've been wrong for the past 7 months. So maybe I'll be wrong for the next 7 months. But if that happens, I don't know, dude. I think PayPal could perform pretty well against Celsius. The poll says PayPal 70%, 30%. All right. So we got 70-30 on PayPal. We got 70-30 on PayPal. A lot of people in the chat thought it's going to be Celsius. So a bunch of people were just saying it might end up being Celsius. Now, a lot of people in the chat also did say that Celsius is disgusting and that the drink is just horrible. So people agree with me on that. But obviously the company is growing. So regardless of what people think about the drink, it's doing really well. And we'll see what ends up happening. But Celsius is up 20%. PayPal's down 5%. Maybe there's an argument for, hey, PayPal actually has momentum left in it instead of Celsius. You can't beat Celsius's growth, though. That is true. Now it just comes down to their valuation being allowed to expand, even if their growth is monumental. Celsius right now, $14 billion market cap, $64 a share. They're up 20% year to date. Let's go back to PayPal. PayPal's $58.75, down 0.67%. It just will not move. There's just not enough momentum. Volume is 2 million. That's disgusting. Celsius has 577,000 in volume. PayPal has 2 million in volume, and PayPal just can't move. It's being held down. Short QQQ up $12 right now, $12.08. Coinbase 173. Coinbase taking a nasty fall. They were at 167 at before earnings, now at 173. They got to 193, so they're down pretty hefty from earnings. Robinhood 1388, not falling as much. Roku down 7%. Again, Walmart's up 5% because they announced an acquisition. They beat on their e-commerce 20% year over year, advertising up 33% year over year. They're doing a 3-for-1 stock split, so this bad boy is going to be $60, which is definitely going to get more people excited about Walmart. They are announcing an acquisition of Vizio, the TV brand, which is going for $2.3 billion, which is going to add to their connected OTT advertising, which might take away some market share from Roku. And so that's why Roku's down about 6%. Bitcoin, 52K. We hit 53K, and then we hit a wall of a ton of sell side pressure that happened. But we did have some momentum for Bitcoin at that 53 level. And Ethereum hit 292. Let me know in the chat if you own Ethereum. I don't own any Ethereum. Ethereum is pretty interesting as a concept. I don't own a ton of it, but let me know if anyone owns ETH and not just Bitcoin. Microsoft under 400. Wow. We're seeing an actual dip today. Microsoft under 400. Microsoft was at 425 on Thursday. Look at that. Microsoft's down. Ethereum ETF could be coming this year. Yeah, that could happen. I don't know if that's going to happen because, I think there's going to have to be a lot of regulatory hurdles for that to happen. But yeah, it's possible to get a little bit of an Ethereum ETF. I know it's definitely in the mix. BlackRock's obviously going to want to do that if they're successful with Bitcoin, which seems like it's okay. But I wouldn't bank on it this year for that happening. Maybe it could happen by next year. Palantir 2350, they're down 3.85%. Okay, so Palantir is taking a little bit of a beating. This is where Palantir was at 2 days after earnings. So we are back to basically February 10th levels on Palantir, down about 4% on the day. Let's look at Mag 7. Mag 7, ETH since 2016. Okay, so a lot of you own ETH. Wow, a decent amount of you own ETH. Mag 7 is down except for Google. Google's actually a little green, and Google got beaten up, so I would imagine Google should be green. Amazon 166. Bezos has sold $6 billion worth of Amazon. Tesla 192. Nvda 691. Microsoft 399. Apple 180. Meta 147. Apple's really interesting, dude. Buffett obviously sold 10 million shares. He hasn't sold in a very long time. People are returning the Vision Pro, or at least that's what I'm seeing from a lot of the mainstream articles, that it's just not as exciting as people thought it would be. Now, a lot of people swear by it. It's the best thing in the world. Other people are like, you know what? It's not worth $4,000. And so if Apple actually takes a hit back to that 165 range, I think Apple stock gets very exciting at that point, because we know generation 2 of the Vision will be better. And if they can actually increase those to about 12 to 15 million units versus the 3 to 4 million they're trying to sell over this one, maybe you see some broader growth. Services gets better. Buybacks continue to happen. They get to buy back their stock cheaper at 165 versus at 180. And the iPhone 16 and the AI sort of integration into iPhone 16, Siri actually becomes what ChatGPT should become in terms of neural language processing. Maybe that's the catalyst. But right now, it is down, and I would imagine 165 is possible, and that would be really exciting. But I don't know if we get back down to 165. That would be harder to see if we get there. Why would Apple let returns? Well, I think any company has. I mean, you can't just, because then they wouldn't get people to buy. I think that 14-day policy they've always had for, since I've been an Apple customer. But also, you want people to get into the store and at least try it. It would be tough if no one even wanted to buy because they thought the price would be too high. SMCI 753 down 6%. Intel's actually up today. Look at the semis on the left hand side of the screen. Taiwan is down. ARM is down 6%. Broadcom is down. Qualcomm is down. ASML is down. AMD down 4.6%. Nvda down 4.6%. Identical. All of these bad boys are down on the day. We are seeing a ton of downside momentum. Vision Pro could be really nice to watch YouTube while on a walk and stuff, but for 3,500, no thanks. Yeah, I think a lot of people think that, dude. I think people who are well off have bought it and they're enjoying it. But if you wanted to buy it and finance it, like, first of all, financing doesn't make any sense, because why would you pay for 12 months when the next generation will come out in 12 months? And then second of all, what's going to happen in regards to the next edition of it that's going to be a lot better in regards to the heaviness and all that stuff to make it more enticing and maybe cheaper. So I think from that perspective, it's going to be hard to justify a lot of people buying Apple or buying the Vision Pro. Nvda reports today. No, Nvda reports tomorrow. Speaking of Apple, let's get an update on them, and let's hear why Apple is an interesting stock to one of these analysts and what he's thinking right now about Apple. Here we go. Let's play this.
Markets and some specific stocks. He's watching JJ Kinahan, CEO of IG North America, all-time high on Walmart.
Yes, sir.
Is that a retail? People like
people like Walmart, but I wouldn't say that it's a stock that everybody sort of loads up on. The most interesting stock to me right now is actually Apple, and the reason I say that is, if you think about the buy the dip mentality back a couple of years ago, whenever we went down, Apple was the first stock people started with. What's happening now is Apple is being left, I will say, a little bit by the wayside. It was usually Apple and Microsoft everything started with. People are still going to Microsoft in times of trouble, but Apple right now, actually, we're seeing more bearish activity than we are bullish activity, which is really interesting to me. And this is normally a stock that, as I say, when we had that sell-off like we had earlier last week, people would rush into that stock, and it's been quite the opposite.
I don't know about the goggles, Andrew. Microsoft has that. If you had to pick someone that AI is going to help, you'd probably say Microsoft.
Well, certainly in that space, you'd have to say Microsoft, and then you got the chip makers going absolutely crazy. You got the SCMI.
What's wrong with Apple?
Or SMCI, I should say.
Fundamentally,
nothing's wrong with it.
What do you attribute it to, then? This relative underperformance
for Apple?
Yeah.
I attributed to the fact that you said goggles. You think about their products. I don't know that they've necessarily come out with anything brand new. Just seems to be improvements of other things, except perhaps the goggles. And so I think there's not that excitement around Apple. If you think of Apple 3-5 years ago, it was always, oh my God, I have to own an Apple product. I don't necessarily see that. I don't necessarily see that in our customers.
So is this a problem for tech?
I don't think so, because you have other companies that are stepping in.
Take the baton. AI.
AI, and you look at the craziest stock, SMCI. So you look at what that stock's doing right now, and if people are going to go trade it watching at home, great. I love volatility, being an options trader more than anybody in the world. However, that stock right now has an implied move for this week of $134 between now and Friday.
That's not what we're looking at, but you said TSMC, right?
No, SMCI.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So it's got an implied move this week of $134. A lot of people are trading it. And again, volatility's great in many cases, but you have an $800 stock with a move that big. So basically you're talking about, rough back of the napkin math, 15%-ish of the stock price, I don't know that most people are ready to take that sort of risk.
Yeah, he's talking about Apple with goggles. He said, look, the goggles are exciting. Like, I don't know, man. I think it's, again, with Apple, just on a fundamental level, you're paying for a pretty high PE with no growth. And I think that's what the street's getting upset about. Even Buffett was like, you know what? I got to take some profits here. These guys aren't growing anymore. So, I mean, look, I think Apple will be back to normal once they get the Vision Pro in a settled place. But right now, the Vision Pro is still a mystery. And it should be a mystery. It's a brand new product category. They've got to really prove it. Until they really prove it, we're not going to see a ton of momentum in the context of Apple the way it needs to happen. But the one thing that's exciting about Apple is that they are the leaders in spatial computing. Meta's not doing it, dude. The reason Zucks did an entire interview trying to like get people to say, he kept saying, oh, well, Meta, we're 7 times cheaper than Apple. It's like, dude, no one cares. People will pay the money if the product is that good. I mean, think about what we pay for iPads and MacBooks and iPhones. Like, people will pay. It's a question of, is the product good enough? The problem with the Vision Pro is that it's heavy, right? It's a little motion sickness. Like, there's some of those concerns, but those will get resolved. But people want it. There's a brand associated with it. There's this whole magic with spatial computing. There was even a report that came out over the weekend that Meta is now re-architecting their 2D atmosphere inside of the Vision Pro to make it seem similar to how Apple has set up the multi-tabs. Think of like basically when you're playing with multiple tabs in the Vision Pro, that's basically like multiple tabs on a laptop. Apple made it look really fun, right? You've got your YouTube here, you've got your notes here, you got your email here. Meta, you've never seen videos with Meta showing stuff like that. Or if you have seen those videos, it's been really crappy. Meta says they're now redoing their entire, UI. And that report came out on Saturday, and I just started laughing because I was like, the only reason, like, why didn't you do this before? It's because Apple innovated on what proper UI should look like. So if VR is going to become a thing, spatial computing is going to become a thing. It's going to be because of Apple. I don't think it's going to happen because of Meta. The problem is they just need to show that in the numbers and the growth of the valuation to make a lot more sense. And if it gets down to 165, I think that's when it gets really exciting when it comes to Apple. But let's see. Let's see what ends up happening. Can't get YouTube on the goggles yet, which is a huge problem for Apple. YouTube's already started working on their platform. So I don't think that's going to last for a long time. Because even Google's like, all right, we got to, if people are going to use this shit, we got to make sure. Google at the end of the day needs to sell ads. And this would probably be a good test for Google. How do you sell ads on the Vision Pro? I mean, it's probably simple, right? Like, it's just an advertisement watching a YouTube video, but still there's probably a form factor you need to make sure makes sense so that people actually sit through it and it's enjoyable, or at least somewhat enjoyable, somewhat reasonable. So Google probably has to do a lot of experimenting happening on that. And maybe the Vision Pro first generation is a good space for them to begin that experimentation. What else do we have going on the day? Let's look at DraftKings. DraftKings last week took a beating. Let's see if they're still taking a hit. And then we'll look at Nvidia again. DraftKings, where are we at? 41.29. Yeah, these guys are down 7% on the day. Okay. I don't know why they're down 7% outside of the macro. They had a really good earnings. They bought a company for $750 million. That's why DraftKings didn't get up to that $48 strike that people had. So those options last week expired worthless if you had those calls, unfortunately. But today they're down 7%. So it seems like the macro is taking a hit at companies that are unprofitable like DraftKings, and obviously are very interest rate sensitive. Now, DraftKings has put up amazing growth, so they've been able to compensate for their lack of profitability with insane growth. But at the end of the day, if inflation is still here, interest rates are not coming down, and the macro is taking a hit, you're going to have companies like DraftKings that are down 7%. Where's IWM? Wow, down 1.36%, below 200. There you go. Russell's below 200. Russell is below 200. Where is SPY? 495. ARM down 7%. SMCI 8.28. SMCI 736. Look, it's still holding 700, which is incredible. It's now down 29% since Friday. So year to date, I think it's still up something ridiculous year to date. Year to date, SMCI is up 163%. At one point, it was up 258%. So it's still up. In the past week, it's down about 29%. So we'll see if it holds this 700 level. Again, Nvidia does well. Maybe SMCI continues to do well. If it doesn't, then maybe SMCI is going lower. Palantir 2330. So we're seeing some there at Palantir. Do we want to buy some more Palantir? Do we buy some more Palantir in the public account? We're seeing a dip. I mean, we're seeing a dip. Let's buy 10 more shares. We'll do 10 more shares for the day, and that's it. And then we'll do our next buy at this $22 level if we get there. Let's see. Remember, we have $2,000 we have to buy Palantir with. Remember, I put 2,000 in options and we made 60%. We made 1,300. And then I took the 1,300 and I put it in, I just put it away. But with the initial 2,000, instead of the options, we're just going to go long on the shares. And that was a good sell, by the way. We sold at 24.70. So that was a really good sell because now we can go long on the shares and we got some profit on the options. So let's end up buying 10 shares right here, and then we're done for the dip buying for the day. You see how Public got rid of that tip offer? They got rid of that tip thing. Yeah, because we're not tipping you guys, Public. I think someone was listening to this. Sorry, we're not giving you $5 to execute the order. This is America, okay? We don't pay for that. This is a new world, and I'm a Robinhood kid, so I'm not used to paying for that stuff. All right. So here we go. Let's buy 10 more Palantir. Can we do a limit price on this? We should be able to do a limit price. Hold on one second. It's spazzing out a little bit. Okay, let's do this. Okay, market order. Yeah, limit order. Let's do 23.30. Let's see if it fills at 23.30. Let's do that. 23.30. Let's see if it gets there. And we'll do 10 shares of that thing. Okay, buy 10. Here we go. Yeah, now they did $3, dude. They didn't do 5, so they did 3. They're like, all right, admit, if you're not going to get 5, give us 3. No, I'm not giving you anything. This is ridiculous. You guys are getting my business. Maybe if you did payment for order flow, you could make some money off this. If you're not going to do that and you want to be all ethical, you could be ethical. But greed is greed, okay? If we're in the markets, I know everyone's seen that movie, Wall Street. Greed is good. And so I don't really care about your ethics, Public. I want my stock. I'm not paying $3. Get the fuck out of here. It's ridiculous. Absolutely insane. $3. No, $3. Taking my $3. That's 1/10 of a Palantir share, or 1/9 of a Palantir share. We're not doing that. The only reason I'm using Public is because I needed a separate account outside of Robinhood to like document the public buying and selling of Palantir with the Twitter money. So that's the only reason I'm using these guys. Otherwise, I mean, it's a good platform. It's not a bad platform. I don't have anything bad to say about it, but that tip thing is ridiculous, dude. Find a way to make money. Either charge me a commission to make the trade, or find a way to make money without asking me to be benevolent and tip you. Dude, this is the stock market. I'm not going to tip you for a free and dude, a free and transparent market. Do we know what the market makers are doing with our orders? JP Morgan had to pay $920 million in fines back in December of 2020 because of illegal market making processes. You think that's a free and efficient market? No, that's ridiculous. The idea that it's whoever pays a tip is a smuck to Public. I mean, paying a tip just for a good service, like that's ridiculous, dude. This is the stock market. And if you don't want to make money off payment for order flow, okay, then don't do it. But then you're not going to be in business and the money's going to go to Robinhood. So you got to adapt. Yeah, that's insane. All right, Coinbase. Where's Coinbase right now? Coinbase, wow, they're down 5%. They're almost at their earnings price, guys. They were at 168 on earnings. They're at 171. They've pretty much lost the majority of their earnings bump from 193. So where's Robinhood? Is Robinhood taking a hit? Robinhood 1380 is actually not that bad. Robinhood, this is up 15% from their earnings price, which is really nice because the good thing is maybe 1380 has become new support. 1350 has become new support. So even though we're down for the day, we're not at that 14 level. We're definitely not back at that $11, $10 level that we were at right before earnings. So that's really good. Mark Mayer says, so you want them to force a commission over an optional tip? Okay, no, I don't want a commission. I don't want an optional tip. Figure out a different way to make money. Robinhood figured it out. You know what I mean? Like Robinhood, and like this is dude, when companies try to act like they're ethical, like public tries to act like they're so ethical because they don't do payment for order flow. Okay. No one cares. Like this is why your business is not a big business, because no one gives a shit. Like if consumers cared, they would go to Public over Robinhood. They don't give a shit. Payment for order flow is a decent business model. It's working. And even if you don't get the best prices, consumers don't have to pay a commission. And so they feel likely to use Robinhood. So trying to bring ethics into this thing and being like, we're a fair and efficient market. It's like, no, you're not. You're not a fair and efficient market. Get out of here. And my tip is not going to make you more fair and efficient. If anything, that's just going to fuel the pockets of the C-suites at Public. So sorry, that doesn't make any sense. It's laughable when I see that, dude. It's ridiculous. SMCI is down 10%. Okay, so where's SMCI? Wow, 730 on SMCI. If it cracks below 700 today, if it cracks below 700, I mean, that's going to be very interesting. That's going to be very interesting if we can get there. That's down 10% of the day. Now the psychology is, is the buy side pressure, is starting to dry up in terms of volume, and the sell side comes in and they're like, you know what, let me take you got to remember, people are up 3-4x on their super micro, and they've got to be thinking right now, damn it, I was up 9x 8x last Friday, now I'm up 4x, and we're talking about maybe tens of millions of dollars for some of the heavy hitters. Maybe I take my profits. That's the psychology I think a lot of people are thinking about right now when it comes to SMCI. And the question ultimately is if that's going to play out. Marco says, I prefer to pay a small fee instead of a worse spread. I think look, dude, I've been using Robinhood for 5 years. The spreads are not bad at all. It's really not. Like and by the way, you can type it, you can do a limit order. So if you do a limit order, if you want Palantir at 23.30 and not 23.31, not 23.90, not 24, you set a limit order and it will likely fill. I mean, like that kind of takes away a lot of the pain here. And like, yeah, maybe you would get a little bit better of a pricing on a different brokerage, but a couple cents is not that insane, especially if Robinhood's proven they can get you a pretty good price given the network of market makers they work with. So to me, I don't know. You got to pay a lot of money to justify not having free commissions there. I buy $100 every week and I pay 80 cents. Yeah, that's not the worst thing in the world. That's not the worst thing in the world. But again, if you're international, sometimes you don't have free commission, right? So, I mean, there's nothing you can do. But at least in the United States, if we have options, then I would go with no commission. SMCI now down 10% officially, 724. It's $25 away, coming down to the 700 level. $25 away from the 700 level. So where's Nvda? If SMCI is down 10%, where's Nvda? Nvidia is still down 5.3. So Nvidia is not collapsing like SMCI, but it is down. Apple's down 1%. Microsoft below 400. 420 was the top on Microsoft. Look, Microsoft at 420 was a bit ridiculous. Even Microsoft at 400, 415, 410. I know they had a good earnings, but I mean, it was getting up there. Like the PE is at 36. The growth is there, but the growth is definitely not there at the level of, something like a Robinhood even, right? Growth is at 15%, whereas some of these other stocks are going at 40% year over year. So you would imagine Microsoft takes a little bit of a breather. Long-term, Microsoft will be fine, but 420 was a little bit much to pay. Same thing with Google at 150, 153, right? I mean, Google's at 153 right before earnings. That was a little, I mean, their PE was better than everybody else, but that was still a little bit high compared to everything else going on. Where's CleanSpark? Let's look at CleanSpark. Oh, and Trade Desk. We got to check them out. CleanSpark's down 5%. Okay, so that's because Bitcoin came down. That's also because the market came down. And then TTD, Trade Desk, 82.74 on Trade Desk, down 6.9%. So they have taken away about $15 from their earnings pump to 94, down to 82 on TTD. So they're down about 6% on the day. Palantir has no real support until 22, so that could happen. Let's go to Palantir. Where are we at on Palantir? 23.24. Yeah, it's dropping, guys. It is definitely dropping. There you go. We're seeing some downside on Palantir. So let's go to their order book and see what we're looking at right here. Yeah, there's a lot of selling. There's plenty of momentum on the downside. The order flow, look at that. 128 million leaving, 109 million coming in. Volume is only 25 million, which again is not a lot for Palantir. By now, we're at close to 40 million by 10:30 a.m. I don't see the support either. I think this bad boy could get to the 22s. It could happen. And then if Nvidia messes up, it could also continue to have a fall. It's really interesting that the market chooses to take a dip. The market chooses to take a dip right before Nvidia earnings. It's almost as if the market's preparing for Palantir. Oh, look at Chris. Do you know what's not dropping? My puts on Palantir. Look at Chris. Goodness gracious. All right, Chris, you got to get to 21 for that to really start printing for you a little bit more. But let's see, dude. Let's see. Oh, look at that. 2307, dude. It went from 2325 in the past 2 minutes to 2308. It is falling. It is absolutely falling. And here's the thing, guys. Are there the dip buyers waiting at these early 23 levels to say, okay, great. I didn't get in at 24. I didn't get in at 25, but this is the price I wanted, so I'm gonna jump in. I don't know. The toots are not selling. The institutionals, the toots have bought and they're holding their shares, and they probably bought at 19, 20. A lot of them bought at the 16, 17 range. A ton of them probably bought in $21 range right the day after we had earnings. That's when we had 400 million shares in volume. When we saw that, we saw institutional investors load up and they're holding, most likely. Unless barring something crazy happens, they're probably not selling. What's happening right now, I believe, And there's some institutional investors selling right now, but what's happening right now on 26 million shares of volume, which again is nothing for Palantir, there's a lot of retail speculators that came in and they don't want to hold it anymore. They don't know what the hell Palantir does. They bought in at 24. They're like, all right, let me cut my losses. They bought in at 21. They're sitting on $2 of gains and they're getting the hell out. And the question simply is, how bad does it get? And where does it fall to when it comes to Palantir continuing to go down? SoFi. Where's SoFi? Where's SoFi? Oh, SoFi is actually staying strong. SoFi is only down 1%. SoFi is not too bad. So SoFi is holding up. Again, Robinhood also holding up. Rocket Lab is green on the day. So Rocket Lab's great. Robinhood only down 1.29%. Roku taking a beating. Bitcoin 51.7. 51.7. It wouldn't surprise me if we slow down on Bitcoin for a little bit. And if it takes a breather, maybe gets back to 48, stays there for a little bit before inching back up to 54, 55 before the halving event. And if that's the case, the entire market would take a little break as well. Definitely the crypto stocks. Let's look at all the crypto companies right now. And then if the macro takes a break, then we're gonna that's the time to be deploying cash. And that's another thing. If people think a dip is coming, like a real dip, not a 2% pullback, but a nice 5 to 10% pullback on the S&P, they're going to have, 15 to 20% pullbacks on different stocks, which means they will have money if they are raising cash to buy the dip. How do you raise cash? You have to sell, which means that's another thing that could play into a little bit of a red scenario over the next couple of weeks, next couple of days, is that people sell. They take some of their profits. And they raise them. I mean, that's what I did with Google, right? I got the hell out of Google, raised 10,000, and boom, we have 10,000 now to, buy a bunch of other stuff. So we might see some of that happening as well on Palantir. Palantir announced 5% dilution this morning. What do you mean, Eeyore? Did they announce some form? Did the 10K, which hasn't come out for a long time, did that come out and that showed more dilution? Oh, they have a bunch of forms that came. Yeah, I got to go through this. They said they just put out an employee. They put out an employee benefit plan and they put out their annual report. So I got to go through all this stuff. There might be a little bit of dilution there if that's the case. S8 form, yeah, that's what I was thinking. They might have diluted us, and then we know that was going to happen. But Eeyore, can you copy and paste what you were reading for the 5% dilution if you can? Been trying to tell you all morning. I'm sorry I didn't see your comment. If you can, because I'm not gonna have the time to look at it literally right now. But if you can copy and paste the quote you were looking at for that 5% dilution, put in the chat, that would be awesome. And we can all read that. That'd be really good. Jittery Hobo found it first. Oh wow, I didn't even see it. I'm sorry, I missed the comment. I didn't even see it. Yeah, if you can put it in the chat, let me know. That might be why Palantir is down, dude. I mean, if you got some more dilution happening, yeah, that could definitely tank at 5%. That could definitely be the case. Coinbase 170, SMCI 708. Wow, SMCI is $8 away from the 6 hundos. $8 away from the 6 hundos. Jittery Hobo says 110 million shares added on the S8 forum. There you go. That's why Palantir is down. That's why Palantir is down. I mean, now look, I don't know if that was dumped this morning. I don't know if that was done over the past couple of days. I actually don't. I have to go through it. Eeyore says the registration statement registers an aggregate of 110 million shares of the registrant's Class A common stock, all of which became available for issuance under the 2020 plan on January 1st, 2024. Okay, so the market probably got a hold of that as well, because now all the brokerages had to update the shares outstanding. And in general, what happens when you dump more shares onto the market is that, and the market becomes aware that those shares are there, is that the ownership of shares you have decreases because the pie gets bigger. So that's why Robinhood buying 55 million shares at $11 was really good for shareholders. They got rid of 5% of the shares, which means you owned a bigger part of the company. Palantir dumping 110 million shares on the company, that dilutes you a little bit because now you own less of the overall pie because the pie gets bigger. So Derek says this cannot happen with Bitcoin. Yeah, that's why people love Bitcoin. Regardless of what you think about crypto, this cannot happen with BTC. In fact, most of this shit is lost, but there's only 21 million. You can't make any more. Even though Jamie Dimon says if you go into the code, you can make more. But I think that's just him ideologically speaking about Bitcoin. In general, there's only 19 million available. By the way, on the halving event, the dilution of Bitcoin is not going to be 1.8% year over year, which is what it's at right now. It's going to be 0.9%. So that halving event is going to be incredibly important because this is going to be an asset that's decreasing the rate of growth in its dilution, right? In its inflation, which is incredible when you think about it, just as a pure monetary concept in and of itself. So that's going to be really exciting for Bitcoin, and that's obviously why people are getting excited. That's why it's at 51,000 right now for before the halving event. Palantir 2293. There you go. We got to clap when it goes up. We also got to clap when it goes down. So what's happening right now, what I'm seeing, and thank you to the chat for putting this to my attention, we diluted shareholders by 5%. 110 million shares happened. Judy Hobo said, my order for 14 Palantir shares at 23 just filled. All right. Well, you're back holding those shares now, given it's at 22.88. And as a result of that, along with the macro and Nvidia having a horrible day, we are seeing Palantir come down a solid 6%. On top of that, obviously the dip buyers are not buying the dip because they are likely exiting, taking profits, leaving, or, done speculating. Maybe the Palantir story is boring to them. It's kind of like a girl they met and they were like, they went on a date. It was fun. They hooked up and now they're done. They're not texting back. A lot of these retail traders that have been speculating on Palantir, riding it from 16 to 24, maybe they've had their fun and they're moving on to the next shiny apple. And so SMCI $6 away now from the low 700s. But maybe that's what's happening with Palantir, down 22.96% on the day. Is this a dip to buy? I think, again, with my philosophy on Palantir, I bought 20 shares this morning. It's really just a question of, your long-term mentality on this. I don't know if we get back below 20. Again, I think we are maybe in the world of people wanting and having an appetite for Palantir in this $20 to $24 range, given all the momentum we've seen over the past 2 weeks. But the S&P pulls back, the macro pulls back, Nvidia doesn't crush. Yeah, we could see below 20 again. The question is that going to happen? And the funny thing is, the good thing about like Palantir getting to 25 is that we've seen this happen. And so if it does fall below, the point is it's not impossible for this to happen again. I mean, when we were at $16 in the $16 purgatory for 8 months, people would have wet dreams about Palantir touching $20, including myself. Okay. And so like the fact that that's happened and that's gone to 25, and we've seen the momentum, we've seen the rally, we've seen how growth has expedited the institutional interest in Palantir. That can happen again, but that doesn't mean we don't get a short-term pullback. And the good thing is we've seen it happen. So if we do get a pullback, maybe that's an opportunity to actually load up for when that happens again, but we would need catalysts for that to happen. And those catalysts, while there are many, Titan, S&P inclusion, sandbagging on growth, international bootcamp expansion, it will take time for that to happen. And so we have to see where the cards end up falling over when Palantir comes back down. Chris says, what's funny is I'll probably end up buying Palantir with my Palantir option gains. So this is also really interesting. Chris has readjusted his buy target on Palantir to $17. Before, he was not a buyer before $12. So even the growth on Palantir has got him excited at $17. The question now becomes, will we get to $17, right? And I think that's going to be the question. $17 would mean that earnings basically didn't happen for Palantir. I mean, $17 would be no earnings growth in terms of the stock price, which actually, I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world if you're a long-term investor, because I think people would buy the hell out of that dip if we get to 17 somehow, which I think is going to be very hard. But if we get there, because you're basically paying the same you were paying for a company that's growing way more than where it was growing in Q3. I think all of us longs would be very thankful for that and happy if it gets there. Not happy because we want to get down, but if we want to buy more shares, that would be the time. But will it get there? I don't know. 22.92. Let's see where Palantir ends up going for the day. Coinbase 169. Coinbase has given up their entire earnings gains, folks. Their entire earnings gains are done. This is what happens when the stock is up 6x in the past year. I mean, look, it can have a good earnings, but it's going to be tough to maintain that. Whereas Robinhood, 1372, is still up about 11% from their earnings because they were just so cheap before the earnings, and they were, the stock price was so depressed. Tesla 191, that's down about 4%. Apple 180, DraftKings 41, down about 7%. Microsoft 398, PayPal 5874, SoFi 824, down about 1.4%. So SoFi is moving down now. CleanSpark 1647, that's down about 7.75%. Google's green 142, Nvidia 687, and SMCI is struggling to hold up above that $700 range. now down 11% on the day. What do you think about Opendoor? They've reduced debt. I'm not a fan of Opendoor, this housing market. Oh, by the way, speaking of Opendoor, mortgage rates are the highest they've been since December 2023. I would not touch anything in the housing sector, dude, unless it's a housing construction company, which maybe there's a thesis there because we have a housing crisis in terms of like lack of supply. Opendoor, Zillow, dude, I'm not excited about these because right now with interest rates high, that's just not exciting. Mortgage rates, look at this, 7.36%. We were at 6.4 in December 2023. Now we're back where we were from those levels. And that's not, look at this, December 25th, it basically came down to 6.5. If you look at this chart right here, all the way down. And now we're at 7.4. That's not good, dude. That's definitely not good for houses. That's definitely not good for demand. That's definitely not good for inflation, given we sold the lowest amount of houses since April 2020 on Friday when that January report came out. So you have a low number of houses, primarily due to a lack of supply. Then you've got mortgage rates at their highest level since December. You've got inflation, which 50% of CPI, over 50%, is shelter. Rents are coming down, but for how long with this lack of supply we have? Wall Street's buying up houses because they don't care about anything. You got Airbnb, TikTok millionaires using certain houses as collateral for other houses. You've got a little bit of a sign of just, okay, this is not necessarily the best thing in the world. And Opendoor stuck in the middle of that. Opendoor they bought 70% less houses than they did from Q4 2022, probably because it's not the best environment to be buying these houses. And so with Opendoor, I mean, I know they were at 90 cents back in December. Now they're at $2.68. They were at $4 at one point. This is a company I just would not touch. Absolutely would not touch. Market cap 1.82 billion might seem cheap, but if you look at their revenue numbers, that's down 70% year over year, and the houses sold is down 70% year over year. So this is not a company I would be super excited for. Zillow, let's see how Zillow is doing. Zillow is down about 1.64%. Zillow's been kind of stuck within this 40-50 range for a while, so that's not too crazy. CleanSpark 1650, but yeah, housing market is very scary right now in terms of touching on some of those companies. El Salvador is looking pretty good right now. Yeah, dude, I forgot. El Salvador, everyone made fun of them, including me. I'm not gonna be a saint here, but El Salvador's average on Bitcoin is, I think, 38,000. What is it? Oh no, it's 42,433. They have 2,762 Bitcoins. So they're up a couple billion on that investment. Yeah, I mean, look, country with high inflation, needing to organize, needing to change the overall economic appetite. By the way, Javier in Argentina, their economy, I saw some stat, their economy is like booming, dude. Like Argentina, I think the stat was like their economy's up like 9% month over month in overall growth. Just because of sorry, this is the stat. They hit their first monthly budget surplus in 12 years. This is why capitalism is exciting. Argentina hit their first monthly budget surplus in 12 years because they finally liberalized and allowed people to start businesses and get things going. So shout out to Argentina and shout out to capitalism actually doing its thing. SMCI is at 704. It wants to go below 600, obviously. We're going to see if this happens. It obviously wants to go below. We just gotta wait and see now. I think we'll see it happen, dude. I don't know if there's enough dip buyers at 706 to hold the stock price up. So we'll see if it goes down. But let's see if it ends up hitting that 600 level. What do you guys think of Novo Nordisk? This is an interesting company. Chris actually called this stock back in November, and the stock's up, I think, 70% since then. It's in the pharmaceutical place. They are playing a role, if I'm not mistaken, with some of the GLP drugs. I might be saying it wrong. Let me pull it up right now. In terms of buying, I have not looked at their numbers, so I have no idea about Novo Nordisk as a actual stock. GLP-1 demand. Yeah. So Novo Nordisk is one of the companies that is pretty integrated into GLP-1, which is, I believe, the thing that has to do with obesity. In terms of, and I might be wrong on this, but I believe that's where their core market share is. And so Chris tweeted this in November 2022. And here you go. Novo Nordisk now up 78% over the past year. Again, I don't know enough about their financials to get excited about them. I don't even know where they're located. I don't think it's the Netherlands. I think it's somewhere else. They're a European company though. Novo Nordisk headquarters. Let's see if SMCI comes down. Novo Nordisk headquarters. Where are these guys from? So their headquarters are in New Jersey. Okay, so that's where I live. But Copenhagen, Denmark. That's where they are. Denmark. Wow. So their headquarters are in New Jersey. Interesting. So their headquarters are right near me. They're like 20 minutes away from me. But they're in Denmark. So yeah, that company is interesting. I got to look at the financials to have any opinion on it, but it's up 72% in the past year. All right, SMCI 702 down 12%. We are waiting for a 600. We are waiting to see 600 Danish. Yeah, Denmark, Danish. We are waiting to see 600 on SMCI. I mean, look, it's at 705, dude. There really can't be that many buyers holding the stock up at 705. I think it's going to come down. Palantir 2298. So we're seeing Palantir in this 2298 level. It's down 6%. I mean, it would take a lot for it to get back down to the low 22s. It's probably like another 2%. So we'll see if that happens. Robinhood 1375. That's holding strong. Coinbase gave up their earnings 169. IWM 199. They're down. This is a red day. This is a good day to have some cash. I don't think it makes sense to deploy a ton of cash today, but to buy the dip on some of these stocks is definitely not the worst idea today, in my opinion, as things are starting to take a little bit of a beating. And we'll see tomorrow. Tomorrow determines everything. Tomorrow, and look, here's the thing. The market falling 6% before Nvidia earnings kind of feels like the market's projecting Nvidia earnings to be bad. And I mean, how good would Nvidia earnings have to be for the market to kind of retick to the momentum we saw over the past 2 weeks? They would have to be astronomical. And maybe they are astronomical, but if they're not, there's going to be a narrative tomorrow at 4 p.m. that the market's overheated. Nvidia ran 50% for no reason. Maybe it could run 10%. Maybe it could run 35%, but 50% is ridiculous. SMCI is way overvalued because their biggest client is Nvidia. And then you got some of the other AI names like a Palantir, like a CrowdStrike, et cetera, that are in this space. Maybe if they're not pure play AIs, they're cybersecurity, but they still don't deserve them. I mean, CrowdStrike's like tripled in the past 18 months. Like maybe that's getting ahead of ourselves. And maybe that's the meltdown we see for the next 3 months before we get better inflation readings and before we make our way back up to 5,000 on the S&P, maybe falling to that 470 range. Maybe that's what happens. And maybe during that entire time, Bitcoin goes to the moon and Robinhood goes to the moon and CleanSpark goes to the moon. And that's the trade of the next 5 months. Maybe that's what happens, or Bitcoin falls with the broader market. Tomorrow is going to determine everything, dude. Tomorrow is going to determine everything. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. What are you buying today, Mid? I bought Palantir. I'll buy a little bit more Palantir if we fall into that 2250-ish range. But outside of that, nothing. This is what I did want. I wanted to write some cash secured puts on Robinhood. I wanted to do that. So let's see. Maybe we'll do that today. Let's see if the premiums are better. Because today is a day, if you want to write cash secured puts, to write cash secured puts. So let's do this together. And we can talk a little bit about CSPs. Today's the day to do it because on a red day, this is when the premiums will be higher. Why? What's the psychology behind that? The market's saying, okay, if the stock is down, then the stock's probably going to continue to go down in general, right? If there's a downtrend. And if that's the case, then put premiums are going to be higher because if you want to buy some protection for your stocks, you're going to have to pay a premium because obviously the stock's already falling. And if it falls to that strike on the put, you want to pay some premium to protect your position. And so you can do a cash secured put, Palantir now 2286, and potentially get some juicy premiums on a stock you want to own in the first place. So, I mean, let's see what we have. So let's open up Robinhood. Here we go. This is the Roth account. We'll be doing it in the Roth account. We have $12,000 of buying pressure. These options on Robinhood are up still 55%. So they're at 2180. We sold 75 of them. Remember, we had 150 of these. We sold 75 on Friday for about a 60% gain. We sold them at 85 cents. Right now, they're at 82 cents. So we're going to keep the rest of the 75 and just let it ride out for a little bit and see what happens. But we did free up a decent amount of money. We made 2,500 on that. So let's type in Robinhood and let's go to trading options. Okay, you guys can see this, right? Yeah. And let's do sell a put. So we're writing a cash secured put, and we're going to do 1 month out, which is what, March 15th, March 22nd. So if I am willing to buy Robinhood at $12.58, I get a 28-cent premium. which if we do the math, that is not the best. Yeah, it's about 2.2% in a month. If I go a little bit further out, $28 or March 28th. Oh, that's even worse. I get 20 cents. See, I don't want to do the $13 strike on Robinhood. I don't want to do the $13 strike because the $13. So basically what this means is if I agree to buy 100 shares of Robinhood at $13, I get 48 cents. Okay. So I get $48, which is 48 cents times 100. So $48 of free money right now. But Robinhood locks up $1,300 of my capital. So 100 shares times 13 is $1,300. I get $48 for the right to buy Robinhood at $13 a share by the expiration date. If Robinhood is $13.01, I keep the premium. I get my collateral. I don't have to buy the shares. If Robinhood is $12.99, I have to buy the shares at that strike at $13. So 48 divided by 1,300, I'm getting a 3.7% premium in 1 month. And if I do end up buying the shares, I would end up paying my actual cost would be $12.52 because 1,300 minus 48 is 1,252 divided by 100 shares, $12.52. Do I want to own Robinhood at $12.52? I mean, that's not the worst in the world, in my opinion, which is why I like Robinhood because I think the valuation is so attractive that Robinhood is the best to do this strategy on. Let's see if we go out a little bit further. April 19th. They're giving 30 cents. Yeah. For 13, they're giving 63 cents, though. That's pretty good. 63 cents is not that bad. Let's see. We're probably not going to make the decision right now. I'll take a look at it, but that's not the worst in the world. But it's not the most attractive premiums. SMCI 703. It's not the most attractive premiums because I don't want to buy it at $13 because I think it can get back to 13 if things get bad. But $12, I feel like is a better margin of safety. But then the premium is not that attractive at $12. Like at $12, if I'm getting 2%, I'd rather go do something with the money than like the reason you write cash curve puts is because it's easy money for a stock that you want to own and you think it's not going to get to that strike price. But if it does, you'll own it. But if it gets to that strike price and the premium you're getting is barely anything versus doing something else with that money, then there's really no value in doing the cash curve put at that point. Then you might as well just buy the stock later. So let's see. You have to do weekly. Yeah, but the weekly premiums sucked. I already looked at the weekly premiums. The weekly premiums are disgusting, dude. I mean, like March 22nd. Let's do what? February 23rd, or let's do March 1st. Yeah, I mean, these are not the best premiums, man. At $13, you'll get 18 cents. That's not horrible. But could Robinhood fall to 13? The problem is Nvda. Okay. If Nvda just crashes, everything's gonna crash because the whole market's gonna crash. Okay, so like that's like $13 on Robinhood seems like it's gonna be hard to get there, but if Nvda, it's not gonna be the easiest to Robinhood to keep at these levels. So we'll see how that goes. On your long shares are cheaper than the market price. That is correct, and I mean if you're gonna go long with it, that's a strategy. So that's not wrong. It's just a question of if the premium is worth it to be able to go long on that. Okay, what else do we got? So Palantir, 68% of you said PayPal is going to beat Celsius. We'll see if that happens. Palantir, Intel's positive. Yeah, some of these value names are getting some more momentum. There we go. SMCI is at 694. It's down. It's down, which means Palantir is at 2292. Nvda is at 683. That's down basically to the daily low is at 681. And then SMCI, oh my, 697. People are taking their profits. Dude. I mean, we kind of knew this was going to happen, right? This is why I joked about buying SMCI at $800 last week, but I didn't actually do it. It was a joke because this is the scary part about the markets, dude. What goes up comes down. This can get pretty scary. SMCI right now below 6,700. That's tough. There were people. Remember, this stock was above 800 for a good week. People were buying it. The stock got to 930 for a good 3 days. It closed at the level. Then it got to 1,000 on Friday. People were buying it, and they are either DCAing or they are part of the SMCI cult now, which is not the most fun cult to be in. I mean, if you're going to be in a cult, you might as well be in a cult where at least there's people like that want to talk about the company day in, day out. There's a weekly podcast, there's a daily show like Palantir. But there's no daily SMCI content, dude. There's no one that cares enough about this shit. So Derek says I still have puts at 960. Oh, those should be printing. Let's take a look at those. Let's take a look at those, dude. The puts should be fucking printing. So let's go to SMCI. Let's go to March 8th strikes on puts. Yeah, dude, these puts are up 50%, 70% on the day. 40% on some of the higher ones. The March 1st puts are up 81%. I mean, yeah, if you said SMCI was going to 670, you're up 85% of the day, expiring today. Look at that. If you had puts on this bad boy, you are making some fucking money, dude. You are making some money. I find it weird MicroStrategy isn't down that much. Where's MicroStrategy? They've started to normalize a little bit more. 694. Yeah, they're barely down. I mean, look, Bitcoin didn't really drop. The reason Robinhood, Coinbase are down is because of the market. It's not because of Bitcoin. Bitcoin was at 53,000. Now it's at 51.7. That's not enough, I think, to collapse the crypto stocks. But the macro taking a hit, I mean, and Bitcoin not moving, but Bitcoin not declining will probably take the crypto stocks down a little bit, but not as aggressively as if Bitcoin was down. Verizon is up on the day. So you got Verizon green at $40.89, seeing a little bit of rotation into some of the value names outside of the growth names as well. Any particular reason why Palantir is down so much on the day? Palantir, as per their S8 form filed with the Security and Exchange Commissions today, has issued 110 million more shares onto shareholders, about 5% dilution, which is why we are seeing the market kind of grasp, with the fact that, all right, we don't own as much as Palantir anymore. And we knew dilution was going to happen. I didn't expect 5%. I thought about 3%, but 5% happened today. And obviously the entire macro is taking a hit. So Palantir is taking a hit as well. Now, the reason the macro is taking a hit, there wasn't that much data that came out this morning that I've looked at when I woke up and I was like going through some of the macro stuff for why we should be seeing such a nasty decline. I kind of think this is more so fear about Nvda. I mean, even Canada, annual inflation rate for Canada fell to 2.9% in January, the lowest since June. 3.4% last month, 2.9% this month, well below market expectations of 3.3%. So Canada's inflation is doing really well, right? I mean, Canada's at 2.9. We're still at 3.1 in terms of our headline CPI. So you're seeing Canada get a little bit of a break on inflation. Obviously, Canada is different than the United States, but we are seeing a better decline. We're seeing Germany inflation go down. That news came out today. But steel is coming down to a near 4-month low in terms of steel futures. But the market, I think, is afraid of Nvidia because there's no massive news we got this morning from an inflation perspective or from a housing perspective. Yeah, mortgage rates are the highest they've ever been, but I mean, they're highest since December, but I don't think that's enough to crack the markets. I think in general, the market's afraid. I really do think that's the reason we're seeing this decline. The market is afraid of what the hell is going to happen to Nvidia, and they'd rather be safe than sorry, and so they're taking profits. I kind of think that's what's happening. Why do they dilute? What do they need the cash for? Stock-based compensation is my best guess for why they issued dilution. So that's probably, if I had to guess, Palantir is, I mean, they're issuing $133 million of stock every quarter. You need to pay for that somehow. And the way you pay for that is you issue shares. So that might be happening as well. Early says, why didn't Palantir give us the warning? They did. They told us. Anyone buying Palantir has to be okay with the dilution. We know the dilution is happening. So we are seeing some more dilution when it comes to Palantir. Now, granted, I didn't think it would be 5%. I thought it'd be 3%, but we did see some of it. Quarantine Quartet says, is the bubble bursting? I mean, on a day like this, it feels like the bubble is a little bit of it wants to get popped a little bit, let's just say. But I don't know. Palantir now down almost 7% on the day. Look, if I had to guess, dude, I think the market is not expecting Nvidia to do well, which is so weird because over the past month, the market's been buying up Nvidia, imagining earnings will do well. But this is how irrational the market is. The day before earnings, you've expected they've expected Nvidia to do well for the past 40 days. Now, the day before earnings, it's like you get cold feet before you go on a date. It's like you're talking to the girl, you're ready to go on a date, and then right before you get cold feet, like now you're just like, you know what? I'd rather take my profits up 50% year to date than risk it on them saying that they have bad or low data center revenue demand going into fiscal year 2025, or that China's hurting them, or some random thing that they announce and that screws up the earnings and the thing collapses to $550. I think that's what we're seeing. And unless Nvidia crushes, I don't know if we reverse that momentum tomorrow on the broader market being excited. So we'll see. We'll see. Would you recommend buying Nvidia? No. I can't tell you to buy or sell, but in my opinion, you're chasing if you're buying Nvidia, especially today. It's down 5%. What if it's down 10% tomorrow? What if it's up 5%? Like if you buy Nvidia, you really have to be okay with the valuation, and you have to ask yourself at 1.7 trillion at a 52 price to sales, 90 PE, is it worth that? Maybe it is, but you really got to come to I personally don't think it is right now, and definitely not the day before earnings. And if I didn't buy Nvidia for the past year, why would I buy Nvidia right now? You know what I mean? So from that perspective, I'm not chasing this one, but we'll see after the earnings numbers. And if you have to pay a little bit more after monster earnings, then great. If you pay a little bit less because the stock goes down because the earnings aren't that big of a monster crush, then that's not too bad as well. Maybe you can get it a little bit cheaper. Okay, Lunar Intuitive Machines is up 51% on the day. I'm trying to get some coverage on this stock. I have no idea why this thing is up this much, but it is up, and it's up pretty aggressively on this news that they're going to space. I mean, like that's the kind of core thesis right here. I want to go to their website, Lunar Stock. What is the website? Intuitive Machines Inc. Okay, Intuitive Machines Inc. It's basically up 300% in the past 2 days. So this is what we've got. This is the name of the company, Intuitive Machines. Market cap now is closing in on $1 billion. Please do not chase this one either. This can get very scary when a stock's up 300% in a couple of days. If you missed it, too bad, you missed it. But chasing this one gets scary. So this is the name of the company, Intuitive Machines. We open access to the moon for the progress of humanity. Look, dude, when I read a headline like that, or I read a mission line like that, and the stock's up 300%, it just feels like this has retail and meme stock written all over it, dude. That's what it feels like. So what are they doing? What is so exciting about these guys? Okay, so here's their press release. Intuitive Missions, a leading space exploration infrastructure and services company, has announced the M1 mission Nova C-class lunar lander has launched on SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket and successfully commissioned in space by establishing a stable attitude, solar charging, radio communications. Okay, so why is this so special? Are they just getting more data from the moon or something? Is that what they're doing right now? It sounds like they launched the satellite in space, but like, why is that so important? What are they getting from that? Okay, so they scheduled for launch on February 5th. They successfully launched 5 days ago. I guess that's why the stock went up, but I'm curious what they get from that. So let's look at the website, Orbital Services. Both commercial and government organizations are seeking in-space orbital services that can repair, refuel, and raise the orbits of existing satellites. Oh, interesting. Intuitive Machines is leveraging its domain expertise in space products of optical navigation, rendezvous, and proximity operations, and robotic mechanisms to satellite delivery, servicing debris removal in space domain. Kind of similar to Rocket Labs, kind of similar to Satellogic, but I think the reason the stock is up is because they successfully launched into space. And so that's why the market's like, okay, maybe they're really doing something special here. So June, when you say first moon landing in 50 years, are they actually on the moon? Are they literally on the moon right now? Or are they just in space? Because the press release I read said they're in space successfully, but not that they've landed on the moon. But if they've landed on the moon, I guess that's interesting, right? That's definitely something to, I guess, kind of be excited about. They're not on the moon, right? They're not on the moon. They're in space, but they're not in the moon yet, or on the moon yet. Regardless, the market thinks they're on the moon. Should land this Thursday. Okay, should land this Thursday. So that's why the market's exciting. They're landing on the moon. They will land on Thursday. DJ says, I bought 1,000 shares last week at $5. Damn, DJ, why didn't you tell us? Shit. Like, thanks for telling us when the shit's at $10 now. Goodness. This stock, by the way, I'm just kidding, but this stock, Lunar, this stock was at $2 in January. So it's up basically 5x. February 7th, it was at $3.50, dude. Goodness gracious. Now, granted, I don't think institutional guys are getting into this. I think this is pure retail trading, okay? Volume on the stock is, where's the volume? Volume is 37 million. Their average volume is like 2 million. So that's up by a factor of almost 20. So there's a lot of retail, I would say, that's trading this. There's a lot of retail that is trading this. Their stock is on the moon. Yeah, pretty much. Mitch says, "Is this? It's amazing, but this is Wall Street. Profits or path." Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Wall Street's super excited about them getting on the moon. That is exciting in general, but I don't know if smart money's excited about that or if that's retail getting interested in seeing what they can extract out of Lunar. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. SMCI, where is that bad boy at? SMCI. Wow, look at that rebound, 717. Look at that. Even Palantir, 2302, went from 2290 to 2302. Look at that. SoFi's up 1%. Google's up 1%. Nvda went from 682 to 692. SMCI went from 694 to 717. Why are people buying this shit, dude? Like, goodness gracious. People want to buy. Oh my gosh, dude. There is so much liquidity in this freaking market. You would think we have a red day. And I mean, it's red, but I mean, look, it's still down 11%, but it was down almost 15%. People bought the dip. People bought the dip. Easy Day bought 3,000 Palantir. All right, so that helped Palantir get higher. He's staying live until Palantir hits 30. Oh man, could you imagine? Could you imagine? Emmanuel says, bruh, are you still on? I'm literally on lunch right now. Lunch at 11 a.m. is interesting. Now, usually people eat lunch at 12. I tend to eat lunch at around 11:30, so I can't really talk. But I thought most people eat lunch around 12 p.m. 11 a.m. Some people try to eat their breakfast sandwich during the day at around 11 a.m. If they get into the office late. But okay, if you're eating lunch, what are you eating for lunch? Put it in the comments. If you're eating lunch right now, what are you eating? Well, I'll be out in like 10 minutes. We'll be done in 10 minutes. But what are you eating for lunch? Jed says just buy Rocket Lab. Well, Rocket Lab's not going up 300% in 2 days, Jed. So now granted, that's probably a good thing because whatever goes up must come down. So Lunar up 300% year to date. I would imagine the puts on this bad boy might end up printing, but you don't know when they're going to print. And dude, like I got to do some research into Lunar because I've never bought a put on a company. I might buy my first put on Lunar. Up 300% just because you're on the moon. I don't know if that's justified, dude. Maybe this is like the easiest put I'll buy. I've never bought a put on a company. If I do, I'll let you guys know tomorrow. We'll buy it together if I end up buying it. But maybe we'll buy a put for the first time on a company because I don't know. I don't think 300% in 2 days because you went on the moon makes that much sense. Oh, there's no options on the thing? Damn. There's no option. Damn, it's up 300% with no leverage. It's up 300% and you can't even do leverage on this thing. Wow. Yeah, you're right. There's no options. That makes it scarier because then when it dumps, it might actually really, really dump. Oh boy. There you go. There you go. Okay. Jittery Hobo on Palantir says the S8 says they filed 250 million shares to be added, but this filing only states 110 million shares were added. Okay, so from the S8 on Palantir, which I'll be going through later today, 250 million shares can be added this year in terms of dilution, which is almost 10% dilution, but they only added 110 million, which actually makes sense because the stock-based comp is about 130 million. So it makes sense that they only added about 110 million. So that's why you're seeing Palantir go down a little bit more today as well. We did get that S8 form filed with the SEC in terms of dilution that's happening with Palantir. But the dip is getting eaten up a little bit. Now it's back down 2286. It was just at 23 now at 2286. So a bad macro, Nvidia falling plus news of about 5% dilution, 100 out of 250 million shares that were added today to the float or have been added over the past 90 days to the float. That can definitely get the stock down a bit more. And that's why we're seeing the decline 6% on Palantir. Nvidia at 689, SMCI 711. All right. There you go. There you go. That's what we're seeing. All right, guys, that is it for me. We are going to do the word of the day, and then we are going to get out of here for the day. But we do have a red day, and, it's probably needed a little bit of a pullback. My dog, Clifford, have you been streaming for 3 hours? Dude, I'm so happy you said Clifford. Put in the chat if you know Clifford, the big red dog. You just brought back 5th grade memories. not even 5th grade, 2nd grade memories of saying my dog Clifford. Yeah, the market stream has now gone to 3 hours, guys. We used to go from 9:20 to 10, then it became from 8:45 to 10. Now it's basically 8:45 to 11 every day. I mean, that's just how it is. It's expanding. But yeah, let me know in the chat if you used to watch Clifford. That's hilarious. That's absolutely hilarious. My work lunch is 11 a.m., just ham and cheese sandwich. All right. Not bad. I'm more of a turkey and cheese type of guy, but that's not too bad. Okay, so let's do word of the day. Here we go. Wow, look at this one. All right, I'm going to try. Okay. Sesquipedalian. No, let me try again. Okay, let me get a second chance. Sesquipedalian. I think I got it right.
Sesquipedalian.
Okay, I didn't get it right. Sesquipedalian.
Sesquipedalian.
A word containing many syllables. Dude, that is of course, a word with like 17,000 syllables would be defined as a word containing many syllables. How do they use this in a sentence? The poet's use of sesquipedalian words in her verses added an air of sophistication to their work. A love of language and her sesquipedalian speech made her a captivating public speaker. Dude, we've got to use this word somehow. This is incredible. I love this word. Sesquipedalian. I'm going to figure out a way to use this word. A word containing many syllables. I'm going to have to figure out somehow randomly during the day. If I keep talking and rambling or something, I'll be like, I'm sorry, guys, that was a very sesquipedalian of me. That's probably not the right way to use it, but that is somewhat of a way to use it. And so this is awesome. No one's ever going to forget this word, dude. No one's ever going to forget this word. Sesquipedalian, containing many syllables. That's awesome. This is perfect, right? This is perfect for me. I love it. I love it. Amit, did you see the Palantir 10K? I'm going through it today. Palantir S8 10K, all of that was just published this morning, so I'll be going through that today. Please follow the Twitter. All of the juicy Palantir updates are there. I'm putting it in the chat right now. If you don't have a Twitter, make a Twitter account. Follow that on Twitter, and I'll be putting all of that dilution, all of the stuff I'm getting from the S8 and from the 10K on Twitter today, and you guys will be able to catch up with those updates, and I'll talk about it tomorrow on the Market Open as well. All right, that's it for me. We'll have Palantir Daily episode coming out in about 2 hours, and then we'll have the market close at 3:45. Thank you all for being here. I needed the market open. I was a mess yesterday. I was an absolute mess. I couldn't function, quite frankly. Like, I needed the market open. I woke up and nothing felt right. So I'm very, very happy we're back on schedule, back in the market open. And thank you all for being here and joining me today. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. It means the world to me from the bottom of my heart. Appreciate it very, very deeply every single day. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you guys in market close 3:45, and we'll see how this red market continues to turn in the next couple hours. All right. Bye, everyone. See you in a little bit. Good night.